Yeah. See the moonlight flick when I'm cruising through dimension shifts, huh? Hey yo, crank the volume! We elevated frequencies tonight! Yo. Moonlight dripping off the dashboard, glass flash fast. I'm a phantom in the digital mass. Every vision in rotation like a vinyl of Mars. Every bar of constellation, I'm aligning my scars. Meditation, mutate, service burning the matrix. Shadow on my shoulder, say patience ain't basic. He said lights a rumor till your peoples embrace it. Now I'm facing revelations in the beauty basin. City full of sirens, in the sun of salvation. Angel investors on heavenly probation. Love be the currency, hate be inflation. Soul be the stock and divine valuation. Vibration that is stream, got co-modulation. Frequency bleed through the speaker in rotation. Feeling every echo like a spirit simulation. Trying to find peace in the glitch of creation. Now I'm swimming through the static, cinematic in the attic. Automatic thought patterns, quantumatic, problematic. Every atom that I rap and it react like magic. Turn the mortal minds panic, the galactic graphic. I don't wanna lose my soul to survive. They told me chase the gold, I'm chasing time. Cause heaven in a place is a frequency climb. Pure state of mind, redefine the divine. Breathe, rewind, go. Latex from the universe, say wake up soldier. I reply with a verse that could bend a boulder. My aura been colder, coated in exposure. Holy water drip through the ice on my shoulder. Design of reflections, that facade collection. Every scar a confession, I'm the prophet of regression. Streaming my perception through a data compression. Every session of resurrection, no discretion. I'm the algorithmic archangel, art fatal. Shark cradle, rocking bars in a dark fable. Heart cable, sparking, chart unstable. Mark label, shockwave, large and fatal. I've been scrolling through the scripture like a hacker with a halo. By trade, faith flow, pregnant in the payload. Pain be the to the joy be payroll. Life's a Rubik's Cube loop with a halo. Now I'm flipping through dimensions like a DJ scratch. Every memory I match it, ice my patch. Got code in my veins, binary touch. Reboot my brain when the rhythm dispatch. Breaking the concrete, thunder in the speakers. Lion heart chain, break the chains of the reapers. Divide us with delusion, confuse the believers. But the pulse of the people still pound through the meters. Babylon fall when the bass line rumble. Drums talk truth that the false gods fumble. Heartbeat quake, systems crumble. Freedom's a flame in the world, just the jungle. I don't wanna lose my soul to survive. No. I just need that truth to stay alive. They don't make my shades go, but I'm breaking that bind. Cause heaven's in the reverb of a pure state of mind. If I fade, don't you dare mourn me. Rebirth adorn me. Sample my storm speech. Reform me and form free. Spirit is a waveform, transform normally. I'm the echo of eternity, conforming formally. We ain't broken, we binary reborn. Every dawn in distortion, reborn. Bah!
Oh, brother, oh, brother, oh, brother. Good afternoon, and welcome back to a specialty episode of the Matt Kohrs Show, where just maybe we're going to figure out what in the world is going on this afternoon. The market went up, then down. Maybe it's turning around right now. Obviously, time will tell. But what we're really waiting for is it should be starting any second now. We're waiting to see if our boy President Trump is about to go live. A little bit of breaking news here on CNBC. He is sitting down with Joe Kernan of Squawk Box for a sit-down interview of all of this craziness. So let me make sure the volume is good there. I'm going to turn that. I know you guys can't hear it yet. I'm just waiting a little bit. He is currently doing some sit down business conference thing, so sounds like the dude's kind of busy. What is this one? This one's okay. It did officially end. Looks like this one ended. Look at the who's who of who's in Davos. I recognize that's Howard Lutnick's son, running Cantor Fitzgerald. That's interesting. So anyway, that just ended. We are currently waiting for the sit down interview with CNBC and Trump. That's what's going on. Like I said, the market, big pop up, big drop down, big pop up, big drop down. VIX, big drop down, big pop up, and then just tracking some of these other things. Lots of swings today. Fortunately, I was able to catch a chunk of it. I'll show you guys that in a second. But before we get going, because I just don't want to interrupt the actual interview, many of you said, hey, Matt, we can't get the free month. What's going on? What's not going on? I was able to put some things together, and I am pleased to announce the brand new Goonie Trading Discord. Is it a finished product? No, that's exactly why if you use the code Davos, DAVOS, good for today, your first month is free. When you are checking out, put that code in. If you forget to put it in, I can't help you out afterwards. So in the checkout process for the entire first month, 31 days free, you're not going to get billed. Use that code Davos. And the reason I'm doing it is, first of all, as you can tell, the team and I, lot of effort into this brand new website. You could feel free to check it out. I think it's a lot better. I think the syncing process, but this is how you get into the Discord. Once again, the first entire month is free. DAVOS. Put that in the checkout. A lot of people complaining that locals wasn't working. The syncing process was difficult. There's scammers, this, that, the other thing. A lot of this is going to fix 99% of the problems. And in fact, it gives me and the team a lot more flexibility to do far cooler things. So like I said, I'm kind of doing it not only because of some of the issues with locals and scammers, but give me that first month. That's why it is going to be free, to kind of show you all the cool things that we can build out here. I would say the website itself, like right now, it is not a finished product. We have a lot more things going. I just seem to have a lot of questions about what is and isn't happening. So if you are not in the Goonie Discord, if you're already in it, good. You're in. You don't have to worry about it. Nothing's changing for you. If you are not in it yet, this is the free way to enter. 100% free. Pinned to the top of chat in the description of the video. Use that code Davos, DAVOS, to get in for the first month for free. And then from there, that's basically where you're going to get access to all of this. Let me just show you what's going on here. What's going to happen? Let me show you. This is the Discord. When you first get in, you're going to have this welcome message. You're going to see all the information. All you have to do is react with a button, and you're going to have full access. You just have to basically say you're not a scammer, that type of thing. Check all this stuff out. Then from here, you're going to have the Discord guide, which is a breakdown of everything going on in the Discord. Just links to other educational videos, content, that type of a thing. Important is where we just have our big announcements. There is a news feed of all the breaking news throughout the day. I give you guys Piper. That's an automated system that I just post the levels, bullish, bearish. I let you know my trades just for proof today. I posted this one at 9.56, sold it for $1.05. Bought it back for 20 cents, made about $1.6 thousand there. I have my swing trades in there. People just post their gains. You can see I'm already done on the day, just to kind of show you that right here. I did close that out, 5K per account across 15 accounts. That's $75,000 in one day. What else do we have in here? We have trading chat. This is where people are just talking about what's going on. General chat. You can see we have a trading voice chat, a general voice chat. We do just stuff going on. Market education, posting videos. So like I said, lots of changes coming. This is by no means a finished product. In fact, I'm kind of front running it. I just got off the phone like 20 minutes ago with my designers. They're not so happy that I'm front running the launch by about 2 weeks, because we still have a lot going on in the background. But hey, I think it's a little fun. I think it's a little fun when you really put your feet to the fire and see how quickly you can work. So we were literally 2 minutes ago, we just did a final form of testing with some of the people in the Discord. Shout out, Bullets, especially to you for kind of running through that full process with me. But anyway, folks, it is free for the entire first month for you to test drive it. I don't want anyone to feel like they got or anything like that. You're going to get access to my morning write-ups. I give an analysis of the day, the Piper signal, my personal day trades, my personal swing trades, access to trading voice chat and written chat. Same thing with general. Lots of stuff going on in there. That's already what's in there. A news feed, automated, like up to the 10-second news data drops. All of that is in there right now. And from this moment, we're actually just going to be adding on more and more stuff, more automated statistical signals, that type of stuff. So it's going to be in there. Lots of stuff going on. Check it out. And After a month, if it's not for you, just make sure to cancel your account and you're never going to be charged anything. So if you've been kind of like on the fence of like, is it for me? Is it not for me? Literally, there's no downside to try it. You can learn about some of the systems I'm using to make this type of money, option trading, that type of stuff. You're going to meet really cool people in there. Honestly, I think it's one of the best communities of active traders. And like I said, if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. So with that being said, we're still just kind of waiting here. I'll put on the volume for a second.
Kelly, I thought that President Trump, obviously, it was a good thing.
They're still talking about this whole craziness.
Threat of the use of force against the NATO ally,
we
Denmark.
Have some support right
but
there.
I don't think that's going to be very convincing to the Europeans for two reasons. First, they know he's unpredictable.
Completely different thing. Video just dropped. I need your help. This has to do with trading and Apex. It is on my Twitter account. It's also on Rumble. The video is already up. It's already up on the second YouTube channel. If you have a tough time finding it, just search I Need Your Help, Matt Kohrs. It should pop up on both Rumble and on YouTube. Once again, this has nothing to do with the Discord, just to be clear here. But that doesn't mean that I don't need your help. I do need your... Oh, it got moved to 2 p.m.? People are saying it got moved to 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Trump, CNBC. Did it actually get moved here? Latest. Let's see. Did it get moved?
Resulting in far from America and Europe coming closer together over this issue
get
and kind of beefing up security.
Where are we seeing this 2 p.m. thing?
For the Europeans
Is anyone else confirming this 2 p.m. issue?
Trade terms or something like that with China itself as a result.
2 p.m. It says pending live. Oh, it got punted.
The Chinese want to divide the United States from Europe. They've been trying to do that for years.
CNBC,
I don't think it's going to work in the short term in 2026 because China is the major military supplier of microelectronics
what is this
to the Russian
one?
Defense Industrial Base for the Russian.
Is he talking
war in
somewhere
Ukraine.
live right now?
That's an existential issue for the Europeans.
What is this one? Or is it a recap?
And these agreements raise growth and cause stock markets to boom.
Is this actually live? Do we know? Or is it replaying? This started 5 hours ago.
As you've learned, when the United States goes up, you follow.
He is talking. I believe this is actually live.
America, I've stopped the nation-wrecking energy policies that drive up prices while sending jobs and factories.
Or is it a recap?
To the world's worst polluters. They are indeed polluters under.
This got moved to 2. First on CNBC's Joe Kernan interviews President Trump in Davos.
5%. Think of that. And they wonder, why was gasoline going up so fast?
I don't know if it says live here. I don't know if this is a recap of this morning.
100 major power plants were violently shut down.
This one's a recap. It has the vibe of a recap because I know he spoke at the business leader thing, and now we're waiting for this after his. Yeah, this must be from this morning. This must be streamed 2 hours ago. Trump speaks at the World Economic Forum. Trump speaks White House briefing. That was 21 years. Let's see. Let's just see what happens. Trump live. Trump at Davos 2026. Clinton's wow, they're in contempt. Greenland news and Iran updates. What's going on here? What are they talking about?
So if you thought that the timetable was unfair, you should have voted
House
no.
committee meets on holding Clintons
yes.
in contempt.
We all voted yes, except one.
The Clintons are in contempt?
It's a very sensible amendment that everyone should vote yes on. Because
I missed this one.
That we have accountability across the board, no matter who you are. I will yield. Do you want my time? I'll yield the balance of my time.
Pop in the market here. Little pop.
Thank you.
Trying to recover.
Again, Mr. Frost, just to conclude, we obviously
The Clintons are going to be held in contempt?
Representative Lee's amendment.
Contempt.
We think it's important.
The
it's
T.
important to get Pam Bondi to actually produce the files. And it's certainly important to move this debate forward. And so I just, again, want to reiterate and reinforce our support as we wrap up this debate on this amendment.
Who would have known?
Thank you, Mr. Coomer.
Thank you. We have one
Failed
more,
to appear, and they said they
speaking
would
request on our side. That's Mr. Biggs from
testify.
Arizona.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh.
Chairman.
I thought
and
Turns out,
if the,
apparently,
I thought if
mentioned as
Congress
well.
called on you, you kind of like had to do it. That was like my base
I was
assumption.
conducting that hearing that on Minnesota fraud and other fraud that the Democrats were so interested in that only 2 of them bothered to show up. That was interesting. Well, so let's talk about the illicit subpoenas, because I think some of my colleagues may not remember this, but the resolution that we all passed, that passed out of here to install the J6 committee, gave to then Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy specific authority to name the members from the Republican side that would sit on that J6 committee. So he named them. But Speaker Pelosi didn't like those guys. So she said, no, they can't be on the committee. So she booted them and replaced them with people that she felt would be more amenable to accomplish the desired political outcome that she wanted the J6 committee to have. And that was, so she put 2 individuals.
All right, I'm just seeing if we're missing
Liz
anything
Cheney
that
and
is
Adam Kinzinger on
breaking.
there,
Breaking.
having removed,
Yes, no, maybe
and
so.
no other Republicans were
Yes,
on there.
no,
And
maybe so.
Not only did she violate the resolution, but the resolution all called for a
Finding
certain
support
number
right at that
to be on there,
6,800
and there
level.
were not that number. So the committee itself was illicit. It was not a standing committee like this is.
First,
where
maybe
you have,
higher low after the
jurisdictional
sell-off. We sold,
authorities.
we pumped right here.
That committee,
Higher low
by that
recovering.
point,
VIX
was
showing a
no
little
longer
bit of
committee.
weakness.
It was an effort to railroad people, including myself. And things have been said about me repeatedly that have been debunked. Everything's been debunked that was said about me.
Everything's debunked.
But
Everything.
it actually
Oh, that
worked for
is a better
months trying to
stream.
get the Clintons and accommodate their schedule, including continuing this at least once so the Clintons
What is their
find it
schedule?
more convenient to come and respond to the deposition. Leaving all other deflection aside, if you really want the Clintons to come in and answer these questions, then this would be the appropriate time to
smacked
hold
right
them
at
in
VWAP.
contempt. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back to you.
Gentleman yields
Just
back.
100
The
point
question is
smack,
now
like it's
on the
nothing.
amendment offered by Ms. Lee from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
if I might, this is-
Go ahead.
so that we
All right,
know
we are
exactly
waiting
what
for
we're doing
Trump.
here,
It got
because this
seemingly
has
punted
gone
by
way
an
off of
hour.
where we started with Ms. Lee's amendment. So that members of the committee know this resolves itself that the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform shall initiate judicial proceedings in any federal court of competent jurisdiction on behalf of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform
And it's
to
not-
seek
All right, so
declaratory
this is just a
judgments
replay. We're
affirming
not
the
missing
duty
anything
of
new.
Patricia or Pamela J.
Davos,
Bondi,
yeah.
Attorney General of the United States, to comply
That
with the
is
subpoena
definitely a
duly
new
issued
one.
to her by the chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform.
You can do that.
as
You
a
can just
part
like
of
not show up.
investigating and the investigation into federal government's enforcement of sex trafficking law generally and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein and
When is
Ghislaine
the meeting?
Maxwell.
The meeting was
How
for
we
1
vote
p.m.
on this will
Eastern,
be very
16
telling.
minutes
I
ago,
support
but it
this
appears as if it's
amendment. I
getting
would urge
punted
other members of the
to
committee
2
do so
p.m.
also
Eastern, so in
if
about
we are
45
serious
minutes.
about equal practice and holding everyone accountable. I yield back, sir.
Mag 7 pop, gave it back, flat, spy,
Gentleman yields
pop,
back.
gave it back, grinding back up.
The question is now on the amendment offered
We're
by Ms.
getting
Lee
caught
from
up right at
Pennsylvania.
the
All
top
those
of the
in favor
transition zone. Look
of
at
the
where
Lee
we found
amendment
support.
signify
The
by
level
saying
called
aye.
out
Aye.
before the market
All those
opened.
opposed, no. No.
Looking for
In
the
opinion
bounce
of the
back
chair, the
right
noes
into
have it,
this
and the
zone would
amendment
be
is
the
not
first
recorded.
test.
Recorded vote, please, sir.
A recorded vote is ordered as previously announced. Further proceedings on the question will be postponed.
New Goonie Trading Discord just launched. Free month.
Mr. Chair, I
If
have
you
an
use the
amendment after
code
this.
Davos, it is good for today. For today,
clerk will distribute the amendment
DAVOS.
to all
First
members.
month free. Good for today.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Of course, you
Amendment
could
to
cancel
amendment
your
in nature
account
of
at any
substitute
point
to
within
the
that
William
month,
J.
and you'll never
Clinton
get
contempt
charged.
report as
No
offered by Mr. Min of
questions.
California.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
What is
Chair
this?
Comer, I motion to amend your amendment in the nature of a substitute
Amend your
to
amendment.
authorize the House Oversight Committee to do 3 things. First, pursue federal court action to enforce a subpoena against former President Bill Clinton related to the sex trafficking investigation. 2, require the committee to report back any resulting litigation. And 3, direct the House General Counsel to represent the committee with the Speaker's approval. Now, I have, as mentioned previously, spent my career trying to enforce the rule of law. I started as an SEC enforcement attorney, went on to become a law professor. I very strongly believe in the rule of law. But the rule of law is not just about not having anyone above the law. It is also about not targeting people simply because you don't like them, or because they're in a different political party, or because they've done things you don't particularly care for. Going after an individual uniquely.
If you
because of
choose
how
to
they're
sign up
presented-
today, right now, I can help you in real time if there are any issues. I just want to be upfront and transparent about it. I front ran the developers by 2 weeks for this to go live. So if there's any issues in real time, I'm the guy, especially for the next 40 minutes here. I could like literally personally help you right now in real time. So not only are you getting the entire first month for free, just because I understand that you're taking on the risk of it being a little bit clunky and saying like, okay, quickly, Matt, how quickly can you get it spun up? That's why I'm giving you 30 days free. But on top of it, I guess just a little bit of a bonus here is like I could literally personally help you. But the process should be far, far easier than locals, like way, way easier. Anyone who's gone through the locals and the syncing process, I fully understand it was a bit of a pain in the butt. This should just be like, hey, I signed up, I linked my Discord, and I'm good to go. It should be like 99% more simple, more streamlined. It should help fight all the scammers. You should get full access right away. No 1 hour delay. Like this should be a far, far, far better process. So check that out. Like I said, code Davos. Don't pay for right now. I'll be upfront with you. Why pay at this moment when you can get an entire month for free? Use that code Davos, DAVOS.
Time do they say we're not complying with the subpoena? And to me, civil enforcement is an appropriate intermediate step. It makes sense because it allows a court to step in, secure compliance with the committee's subpoena in a nonpartisan, orderly way that follows the rule of law. Court would be empowered to impose fines and actual imprisonment if the individual or entity refuses to comply with us. If we break from precedent, this is going to start potentially a chain reaction of partisan warfare with criminal charges. That is not a road I believe we want to go down in this committee or in this Congress. I think civil contempt will achieve our goals, and it will do so in a way that is consistent with the rule of law. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I'll recognize myself for a few minutes. The committee's consulted with the House Office of General Counsel as well as committee counsel, who have expressed significant concern with shifting from criminal contempt to civil contempt because it would likely result in extended litigation that would go beyond this term. As Mr. Perry said, a subpoena is only good for a congressional term. He is already 5 months past his subpoena. The Clintons have lawyered up. There's no question in my mind that if we do this, they will ride this out and hope that the House flips and that you all are in control and you all just let them get by without answering any questions, which I think is terrible. So I cannot support this amendment. I ask my colleagues to oppose this amendment. Chair recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to support the Min motion. I just want to reiterate something that I think all Oversight Dems have said today is that we all want to hear from President Clinton. We all want questions answered from President Clinton. I don't think one member of this committee has stated anything differently. And this amendment is a way for us to secure compliance without immediately moving to criminal contempt while they have been trying to negotiate answering our questions. We can continue to let the legal process play out. Both the integrity of our investigation as a whole is critical as we move forward. This is an opportunity for us to get our questions answered from President Clinton. We will do that without empowering a Department of Justice that, quite frankly, has been corrupt and untrustworthy for many, many months. We should continue to negotiate and work through an established process. Clearly, there's interest to negotiate from the Clinton side. Let's hear from President Clinton. Let's support this motion. I yield back.
If I may, and with all due respect, if you want to hear from President Clinton, have him come in for the deposition. They've had 5 months to do that. For whatever reason, you've been unsuccessful. There's 2 more weeks before this will be voted on for the full House. We will hear from Bondi in between, and we will go from there.
Supreme Court justices expressed skepticism over Fed Governor Lisa Cook firing. Probably not going to go Trump's way. This
Thank you,
is
Mr.
replaying.
Chairman. A couple of points.
We're waiting
One,
for this.
It seems to me like we
And we're
made
listening
some
to this.
progress in the negotiation to talk to President Clinton here today. You have acknowledged you and your team are no longer going to demand to be able to ask questions not related to Epstein. The Clintons have agreed to transcription of that conversation. So
Nick Shirley
you
had
could
to
go to New York
testify?
and talk to President Clinton on the date that you all set. That's ready to go. We've heard from Ms. Luna that it would be a bad look for you and the ranking member to have to drive to New York. They got airports there.
Nick Shirley joined the House Judiciary Committee for fraud and theft on the taxpayer dollars. Let's see what happens on 1.5 here.
But our hearing is on fraud and theft of taxpayer dollars. I now recognize the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Lee, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Developmental and behavioral intervention, housing stabilization services.
So this happened a
and
little bit ago,
supports.
once again, the
Now
fraud
we're
and
gonna watch
theft
a
of
video.
taxpayer dollars. Might be a little bit more interesting than the Clintons, who are currently getting lit up.
It's welfare fraud. It's all about the daycare.
They estimate as much as $100 million a year is being stolen by shady daycare center operators.
So how much money are we talking about stolen from the American taxpayer?
Well in excess of $1 billion.
Ripping off state-run programs intended to feed low-income kids, house the disabled, and provide services to autistic children.
Where are the children at? Do you know where the children are at? Where are the children at in these daycare centers? Money's going.
Attorney General Keith Ellison was focused on one thing and one thing only, and that was keeping these folks in business.
When do you think Governor Walz knew about this fraud?
From the very beginning. What happened here in Minnesota?
Dude, someone has to get arrested for this, right?
To materialize.
The people at the highest levels of responsibility in the government of the state of Minnesota looked the other way.
Fraud within these programs have involved false claims, fictitious providers, and services not rendered, highlighting the need for stronger verification, monitoring, and enforcement to protect taxpayer funds. These fraudulent actions have robbed taxpayer funds intended to feed children, support individuals with autism, provide housing for low-income and disabled Americans, and deliver health care to Medicaid recipients. Since 2021, the DOJ has charged 98 defendants in Minnesota-based fraud cases, 85 of whom are of Somali descent. Of the 98 defendants, 64 have been convicted. DOJ has now undertaken extensive investigative action, which includes issuing over 1,750 subpoenas, executing more than 130 search warrants, and conducting more than 1,000 witness interviews. Since the start of the Trump administration, the federal response to fraud in Minnesota has intensified, following a series of high-profile cases involving state-administered, federally funded programs. One of the initial instances of high-profile fraud in the state involved the nonprofit Feeding Our Future, which was at the center of a $250 million COVID-19 related fraud scheme. As part of the scheme, fraudsters exploited Department of Agriculture, USDA food programs designed to provide meals for children. Federal prosecutors ultimately convicted 57 defendants and described the scheme as the nation's largest COVID-era fraud. The issue gained renewed national attention in late December 2025 following a widely shared YouTube video posted by one of our witnesses, Mr. Nick Shirley. Mr. Shirley's work highlighted suspected fraud in Minnesota child care programs. His reporting prompted federal authorities to intensify investigations, expand oversight, and coordinate multi-agency enforcement efforts. A week ago today, Mr. Shirley released a second. Mr. Shirley uncovered companies with questionable addresses and vehicles intended to transport children.
5 minutes got knocked twice. Let's see if it can actually switch trend here. 10 minutes battling it out, currently at equilibrium. Same thing with 30-minute. Same thing here. 5 knocked twice. 10 minutes battling it. 30 minutes battling it.
Services can shed some light on that for us. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that this massive wave of fraudulent activity didn't just have the consequence of ripping off taxpayers. It has drastically impacted legitimate organizations that are truly helping their neighbors. Jennifer Larson is here today to share her story about how this massive fraud has crippled her organization that serves autistic children. We'd like to think that these fraudsters will one day face justice, but it appears that is not always the case. For example, Yasmin Ali, a daycare and home health care owner charged with stealing millions from Minnesota taxpayers, after being granted bail, disappeared before a trial and has not been located since. That was more than a decade ago. The tentacles of this fraud ring are widespread and include
Dude,
crimes
this
other than
stuff
fraud.
is wild. This is some
For
of the
example,
most
the aforementioned
disgusting
Yasmin Ali,
shit, this fraud,
the brother,
and all of the
Adaris
fraud. I don't really
Abdullah
care
Ali,
that's
pleaded
done
guilty
by
in 2009
Somalis.
to
It's
lying to
just,
federal grand
I'm a
jury about his
tax-paying
knowledge of a
person,
group of young
and
Somali
the
men
fact that
in
there's so
Minneapolis
much
who
fraud
traveled
in
to Somalia
all
to
of
fight with
these urban
al-Shabaab,
areas
the
is a
foreign terrorist
legitimate
organization against
issue.
the transitional federal government of Somalia. We can also consider the fact that at least $700 million in U.S. cash transported via passenger luggage through Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. The incidents are all currently under federal investigation with have been established yet. We know that hundreds of millions of dollars in cash are being transported to areas where foreign terrorist organizations are active. What could possibly go wrong? A whistleblower has alleged that TSA personnel at MSP, Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, repeatedly identified and flagged routine encounters with Somali men carrying large suitcases filled with bundled cash, often exceeding $1 million. During an interview, cases packed with millions of dollars in cash moving through MSP again and again, carried by the same type of couriers, which raised questions that she feels law enforcement and political leaders still haven't answered, close quote. JAXA further explained her repeated encounters with Somali men carrying suitcases packed with cash, and in one case, a bag filled with new passports. According to JAXA, the volume, consistency, and profile of the transactions she witnessed were well beyond ordinary or everyday behavior. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has noted that the department is currently investigating where Minnesota's taxpayer dollars are being placed. Additional reports show that Somali individuals in the
You don't
United
care
States
about taxpayer
send roughly
fraud, just
$215
non-taxpayer
million
fraud?
abroad
No,
each
they're not
year.
mutually
On
exclusive.
January
Any
9th,
form of
Secretary
fraud
Bessent
is
indicated
bullshit because it costs
that the
us
Treasury
all more
Department's
money.
Financial Crimes
Fraud
Enforcement
is
Network,
fraud.
FinCEN,
It doesn't matter
informed four money transfer
gender,
organizations
race,
that they're under
taxpayer
investigation for their
status.
roles
I'm
in
saying
the fraud scheme
I care
involving
about it
the
because
theft of
I'm a
funds from social
taxpayer.
services in Minnesota. He also indicated that some banks in Minnesota are being investigated by the Internal Revenue Service's Civil Enforcement Division for allegations related to money laundering. As you can see, there's much to unpack surrounding these numerous fraud schemes taking place in and around Minneapolis, Minnesota. I would be remiss if I didn't suggest and urge additional investigation throughout this entire country. I know that
These are already
in my home
maxed
state of
out, so
Arizona,
there's no point in
our Democrat
trading.
Attorney General
I already made
came
enough
in,
money
to
there, so
office
there's really
and
no
quickly
point in
said that
trading.
there had been $2.5
I do
million
like this
in
breakout,
fraud just in
though.
the Medicaid program alone, and in recent studies released over the last year in Arizona, it's been suggested that as much as $7.2 billion in fraud annually take place in Arizona's similar programs. So this is not just a Minnesota issue, but it just happens to be at the forefront of why we're here today. I look forward to today's hearing, and I thank the members and witnesses for taking part. Now yield back and recognize the ranking member, Ms. McBath, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for convening this hearing this morning to talk about the harm that fraud can cause. And thank you for everyone that is here this morning to testify. It's so necessary that we continue to investigate and prosecute all forms of fraud, including government fraud, which can turn many into victims. That is because a person committing fraud against a government program steals from all of us as taxpayers and abuses the initial purpose of these programs. They harm the organizations that need these programs to operate, and most importantly, they harm the people that the program is designed to help. Whether we're talking about a program that feeds school children, helps seniors find housing, helps people overcome addiction, or provide services to address disabilities, it is critical that the dollars that we invest in these programs actually serve the purposes that we have in
Looks like
mind
we're getting
when
a little
we,
bit of a
the
build-up
lawmakers,
here.
created them. That's why the Department of Justice has always combated fraud, including prosecuting dozens of people for perpetrating fraudulent schemes in Minnesota in 2021 and under the Biden administration. But prosecutions are not enough to combat or prevent fraud. So the Biden administration also established a COVID-19 fraud enforcement task force and increased oversight of programs that were being targeted by fraudsters. Minnesota lawmakers have also taken steps to reduce fraud in their state, strengthening the state's ability to stop potential fraud sooner and improving investigations to hold those scammers accountable. But President Trump has taken a very different approach to fraud. Just last week, Trump added quite a few fraudsters to his growing list of people that he has pardoned, not because they are deserving a second chance, but because they hired his friends, back-channeled a donation, or served his political purposes. He has pardoned many people charged or convicted of fraud and other financial crimes, wiping away more than $1 billion in money that would otherwise have gone to victims of crime. President Trump has also fired inspectors general, instructed his DOJ to stop enforcing bribery statutes, and gutted the offices that investigate white-collar crime. That is how we know this hearing is not really about fraud. It is about trust. The Trump administration does not want you to trust these programs because if you don't trust them, they're easier to destroy them. They do not want you to trust entire communities because if you don't trust them, they're easier to intimidate. But we cannot let that happen. We will continue to fight for robust and responsible oversight and for the continuation of initiatives that make all of our communities safer, healthier, and more resilient. Across the country, there are daycares, schools, hospitals, treatment centers, research facilities, nursing homes, fire departments, police departments, airports, and more that all depend on state or federal funding, not just to help those in need, but to serve every single one of us. If President Trump succeeds in an attempt to freeze child care funding across 5 states, which is temporarily blocked by a court order, the effects would ripple across families and businesses throughout our economy. It would affect more than 500,000 children, and these are children that are not just within the state of Minnesota, but 500,000 children, their parents, the businesses and organizations where those parents work, and the many people who depend on those businesses to fulfill needs in those communities. That's the fallout from just one program, addressing one need across only 5 states. If President Trump continues this assault on critical programs, the harms could be far greater. These latest attacks come on top of the cuts that President Trump
Looking
and
for a
congressional
potential
Republicans
VWAP
already
breakout
forced
here.
through,
1, 2,
which are
maybe the
taking
third
healthcare
test
from
is
10
the
million
charm.
Americans and reducing food assistance to over 40 million Americans, including many, many children. We don't have to choose between programs that are susceptible to fraud and nothing at all. With proper oversight, we can make sure that every American is fed, that everyone can access housing and medical treatment, and that our daycares and our schools can keep guiding our children towards a better future. I look forward to hearing more today about how we can achieve this goal. I thank our witnesses for being here, and I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan. No, I don't recognize him right now. But I will recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us. In a just world, the Judiciary Committee today would be investigating why a masked ICE agent shot 3 times in cold blood and killed an unarmed citizen, a 37-year-old mom, Renee Nicole Good. We'd be investigating why Trump's DOJ is harassing and investigating Renee's wife instead of investigating her killer. We'd be asking why ICE agents are trained in basic CPR, but 911 tapes have shown none of the agents performing CPR on Ms. Good. They left her bleeding alone in her car for almost 3 minutes and definitively rejected the help of a man who came forward and identified himself as a doctor. We'd be investigating why in another Minnesota case, ICE agents
just so you guys know, we are waiting for Trump to get rocking. We are waiting for Trump to sit down with CNBC. It was supposed to be at 1, got punted till 2, so we're just waiting a little bit longer. And in the meantime, there was
as they desperately waited for medical help
probe,
to arrive.
I guess, of the theft in Minnesota, and the Clintons are getting grilled as well.
And prosecuted under the last administration. It is true that social services fraud, serious fraud, occurred in Minnesota. That's why under President Biden, the Department of Justice opened multiple criminal investigations that to date have already resulted in more than 90 people being charged and 64 people being convicted of federal criminal offenses. Indeed, Minnesota lawmakers acted to root out and prevent fraud going forward in the public benefits program. That's why last year, the Minnesota legislature passed legislation to empower the governor to cut off payments or to claw back funds whenever fraud is detected.
I like this higher lows, and we're about to push the highs. So hopefully it's not a double top. Hopefully it's a breakthrough and a follow through.
And preventing fraud and corruption in their programs. The fraud in Minnesota was discovered not by a right-wing social media influencer who's been harassing people in communities all over Minnesota in recent weeks, but by the hard work of real local investigative journalists.
Like, would we actually
brave whistleblowers,
like consider that
state
to be
and federal
harassing?
Auditors. It is this fraud, which we must take seriously, is not unlike the $2.5 billion breathtaking Medicare fraud scheme uncovered last year in the home state of the chairman of this subcommittee, as he himself mentioned, or the massive COVID-19 unemployment assistance fraud scheme uncovered in Chairman Jordan's home state of Ohio. Fraud is endemic.
Can't we be against all of it?
All over the world.
This idea of
there
just
like, hey,
you have worse fraud, so you can't care about my fraud. Why can't we just be against all the fraud?
Even our president has been convicted of 34 counts of criminal fraud by a jury of his peers in New York, related to the fraudulent payments made to porn star Stormy Daniels, and also civilly convicted in New York for different kinds of real estate fraud. Fraud is not headquartered in one state.
I agree.
Or one municipality, much less one ethnic, racial, or religious community. But
fully agree.
President Trump couldn't resist the temptation to use fraud in Minnesota as an occasion to mobilize the power of the federal government to bully and intimidate first and second generation Somali Americans who live in that state. Many of the people convicted in the fraud schemes were of Somali ancestry. So, under the pretext of cracking down on a fraud that had already been discovered, investigated, and prosecuted, Trump surged federal immigration officers to Minnesota and aimed them at the Somali American communities, calling the people who live there repeatedly garbage. This is despite the fact that it is a complete non sequitur, obviously, to send immigration agents to conduct fraud investigations. And the deployment of law enforcement resources against an entire ethnic community after the criminal prosecution of a small group of its members is to promote the sinister ideas of collective guilt and guilt by association, two doctrines that are emphatically rejected in Anglo-American jurisprudence and by our courts. The community targeted in Minneapolis is made up, incidentally, overwhelmingly of U.S. citizens. 95% of Somalis in Minnesota are U.S. citizens.
Yeah, rejected off of VWAP. That's why I get out. But if it tries again, I'll get in again. Because it might bounce off of 200 here.
President Trump pardoned the big-time drug dealer and convicted fraudster Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras,
right there.
sparing him
I just got out on this little
45-year
breakdown.
criminal
Super
sentence
trend test.
after he brought in 400 tons of cocaine into our country.
That's a lot of cocaine.
800,000 pounds of cocaine that he said, quote, "We are going to stuff up the nostrils of the gringos." And Trump pardoned him.
Whoa.
And if you're interested in that particular
Sign up for Discord,
deal,
but won't work after I click the emoji.
Mr. Chairman, just last week, the president granted pardons to more convicted fraudsters. Julio Herrera Vellatini was scheduled to be sentenced this month for participation in a political corruption and fraud scheme alongside his co-defendant, the former governor of Puerto Rico, Wanda Vasquez. In late 2024, Mr. Herrera was facing felony bribery charges in a different case.
Could you DM me? Because other people are getting in right now.
$2.5 million to the MAGA Inc. super PAC. Then in May 2025, Mr. Herrera's lawyer, who had served on President Trump's legal team, negotiated a deal allowing him to plead guilty to a trivial misdemeanor offense instead. Several months later, Mr. Herrera's daughter donated another $1 million to MAGA Inc. And what do you know? President Trump generously granted Mr. Herrera a full and unconditional pardon just last week. They're making a fraud out of the pardon process in America with pay-to-play rules as they pardon recidivist, hardened, unrepentant fraudsters. Well, indeed, in total, President Trump has pardoned more than 1,600 people, depriving victims, survivors, and taxpayers of an estimated, check this out, $1.55 billion in restitution and fines owed to us, the American people.
Is anyone else having issues getting access? As soon as you're on that main welcome page, not only do you have to hit the emoji, but before you do that, you have to accept the terms, basically to let you know that they're scammers and I'm never DMing
from
you.
working class people and crime victims as the administration gives all of these ill-gotten gains right back to the criminal fraudsters who stole the money in the first place. And finally, Mr. Chairman, President Trump has dismantled the infrastructure that actually prosecutes white-collar crime and fraud in America, actually roots out waste, fraud, and abuse. The Trump DOJ gutted the public integrity section at DOJ that prosecutes government officials who break the law. And nearly a year ago, his DOJ suspended enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits foreign bribery, saying all bets are off. He's gutted the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the first and the only agency devoted solely at the federal level to protect American consumers against being cheated by big financial corporations. The CFPB delivered $21 billion back to more than 200 million Americans who were victims of fraud and other predatory business practices, and the administration has been gutting the CFPB because they are on the side of corporate fraud and white-collar crime. That's the truth of what's going on there. They fired 17 inspectors general, the independent government watchdogs, whose job it is actually to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption, and left 28 IG offices without Senate-confirmed leadership at all, allowing the corruption and the fraud to run rampant. So if we're going to have a hearing about fraud in America, Mr. Chairman, let's do it. Let's take in the full scope of what's taking place in our country. I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the entire committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I want to thank our witnesses for being here. Estimates are potentially as high as $9 billion we're looking at here in what appears to be a decade-long scam, fraud. I mean, I always look at one program I talked about a couple weeks ago in an oversight hearing was this Feeding Our Future program, where taking federal Americans' hard-earned tax dollars, taking that money and supposedly providing meals to children. Problem was there were no meals and no kids. They're just stuffing it in their pockets. So I think this is a great hearing to have. We appreciate the witnesses and the work that they and others who are here. So with that, I would yield back and look forward to hearing from our witnesses and the hearing itself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recognize myself for just some UCs. The first one is President Joe Biden commutes sentences for two of Chicago area's most notorious fraudsters.
Hang on, I'm trying to...
North Dakota judge blasts Biden for setting fraudsters free. Biden commutes roughly 1,500 sentences, pardons 39 in biggest single-day act of clemency, including fraudsters. Illinois lawmakers furious after Biden commutes sentences of state fraudsters. Without objection. And now...
Mr. Chairman, could I enter some as well?
Yeah, please.
Thank you much. This UC request
Not liking
is,
this lower high.
BBC News,
Hopefully it can hold
January 20,
206.
2026, titled Trump's Pardons Forgive Financial Crimes That Came with Hundreds of Millions of Dollars in Punishment. This one is Arizona has recovered just 5% of taxpayer dollars lost in a $2.5 billion Medicaid fraud scheme. That's ProPublica. Columbus Dispatch. Columbus mother and daughter among 15 indicted. Timeline from NPR News. Fraud investigation stretched across Walls' tenure.
Where in the world
without objection.
did I have that?
And now, without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record, and we will introduce today's witnesses. Mr. Scott Dexter. Mr. Dexter is a former law enforcement officer, having served for 28 years. He also served with the Minnesota Department of Human Services Office of Inspector General, where he investigated fraud in the Child Care Assistance Program. Thank you, Mr. Dexter, for being here. And Ms. Jennifer Larson. Ms. Larson is the founder and chief executive officer of the Holland Center for Autism, a clinic that provides services to children and young adults with autism. She started the Holland Center to serve families like hers that were not receiving adequate services and support elsewhere. Thank you, Ms. Larson, for being here today. Mr. Nick Shirley is an independent journalist. His recent investigations and videos have shed light on the scale of
All
fraud.
right, you should have an
public benefit
easier
programs in
time
Minnesota
joining now
that are
for the
currently
server rule
ongoing.
thing, so feel
Thank
free to
you, Mr. Shirley,
refresh
for
it.
being
Just
here.
make sure you're on the right
Mr. Dylan
Discord that
Hitler
you
Gaudet.
connected,
Mr. Hitler
and you
Gaudet
can
is
know
the
the
acting
one you
vice president of
connected by
policy and
just
government
looking in
affairs
here
at
in
the
your
Project on Government
dashboard.
Oversight.
But it should be
POGO is a
easier
nonprofit
now.
organization that investigates alleged wrongdoing by the governor. Thank you, Mr. Hitler Gaudet, for being here with us today. We welcome all our witnesses and thank them for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
I just made
information,
one
and beliefs, so help
switch. You
God?
should be good.
Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. The record will reflect that the witnesses have all answered in the affirmative. And at the instruction of Mr. Hitler Gaudet, I wanted to let all members of the panel know that when you have questions for him, please say his name so he knows that you are addressing him, please. I want the
If you're
witnesses to know
joining,
that your witness testimony will be entered into
Trump's
the record in
talk
its
got
entirety.
kicked to 2 p.m.
Accordingly,
Was
we
supposed
ask
to be
that
at
you
1. We're
summarize your
15
testimony in
minutes
5
out.
minutes. And we'll begin
They're
now with Mr.
replaying
Dexter.
Trump
You're
here.
recognized for your 5 minutes.
They're grilling both Nick
Thank you.
Shirley about
Chair, members
Minnesota
of the
and then
community,
also
thank you
the
for the opportunity to speak
Clintons
with you today.
about
My name is Scott
being in
Dexter.
contempt
I'm a
of
retired
court.
law enforcement investigator with 28 years of experience.
S&P 500
Most
is
of it
bouncing
spent
ever
conducting
since
criminal and financial fraud
12.15.
investigations.
Mag 7 has gone
Experience in
flat
surveillance
since
operations.
12.15.
In 2013, after retiring from law enforcement, I joined the Minnesota Department of Human Services as part of a newly created investigative unit within the Office of Inspector General. Our mission was straightforward: identify and investigate fraud within the Child Care Assistance Program, known as
1
CCAP.
minute is
I
not
was one of the
going
original 4
bullish.
investigators hired, all of it were the community it served. They were selected based solely on tips, complaints, and the amount of CCAP funding being paid out. The highest funded centers were reviewed first, and many of those centers were referred to us through the public tip line or by licensing inspectors who observed activity inconsistent with a legitimate daycare operation. What we found was deeply concerning. Many of these centers operated out of commercial spaces with windows totally covered,
Going to tag
no visible play
200
areas,
here.
and very few children ever present. Through surveillance, data collection, and review of attendance and billing records, we repeatedly documented patterns of overbilling, non-existent attendance, and in some cases, children being signed in for hours they were never actually at the center. Our investigative
Will
process
these buyers
was
step
thorough and
up?
methodical. We collected licensing and billing data, installed covert surveillance cameras, reviewed hours of video, identified parents and employees, and calculated estimated overpayments based on actual attendance. Completed cases were then turned over to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for search warrants, interviews, arrests, and potential prosecution. As our investigations progressed, we noticed a trend. Many of the centers receiving the highest levels of CCAP funding were owned and operated by Somali individuals, doing new or current investigations in order to enter data from all previous complaints received by DHS into a newly created database, a process that took nearly a year to complete. These changes significantly hindered
Balance
our
off
ability
of
to do our
200
jobs
there, the
effectively.
point of control.
Ultimately, in 2019, I chose to retire
Reasonable
because the
target at
investigative process
50,
had
which
been
is pretty much
become so
VWAP.
constrained that meaningful work was no longer
VWAP is
possible.
like 53.
Through collaboration with federal agencies, including the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, Homeland Security, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, we learned that millions of dollars in cash from the Somali community
Okay, people
was being
are finally
flown out of
getting into the
Minneapolis-St. Paul
Discord. It's
Airport by
working. I'm
Somali
seeing the
couriers.
welcome messages
At one
come
point,
through.
we strongly suspected that it was. We also encountered situations where federal partners
Shout
were
out,
prevented
Jack.
from opening cases due to concerns about political sensitivities surrounding the Somali community and the refugee resettlement program. These decisions had real consequences, allowing fraud to continue unchecked. Throughout our work, we identified several loopholes that made CCAP highly vulnerable to fraud. Centers were allowed to bill for the full authorized hours, even when children were present for only minutes. Billing records could be submitted up to 30 days later, creating opportunities for manipulation. Attendance records were handwritten, unreliable, and often incomplete. And despite our recommendations, no biometric members. The purpose of my testimony is not to cast blame on any community. It is to highlight systemic weaknesses that allowed large-scale fraud to occur and to emphasize the need for stronger safeguards, better oversight, and investigative processes that are allowed to function without political interference. Thank you for your time and your commitment to ensuring accountability within publicly funded programs. And I am prepared
We're
to
testing
answer any
VWAP
questions
right
that you may
now.
have.
I'm watching
Thank you,
this
Mr.
next
Dexter.
zone at 70.
And now we're going to recognize Mr. Hetler-Gaudet for your 5 minutes of opening statement.
Chairman Biggs, Ranking Member McBath, and members of
Whoa.
the subcommittee. I appreciate the
Is
opportunity
this guy going
to testify before you today on
partying
the important
after?
issues of preventing fraud and protecting taxpayer dollars. My name is Dylan Hetler-Gaudet, and I'm the Acting Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs at the Project on Government Oversight. We are a nonpartisan, independent watchdog that promotes a more accountable, transparent, and effective federal government. We view it as our mission to combat abuse of power and corruption in the federal government, which includes working on rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. The unfortunate truth is that fraud in government programs is a fact of life. Since the United States government has existed, fraud in government has also existed. Or much longer than that, in fact. For as long as human beings have been organizing ourselves into societies and building institutions to govern those societies, there have always been those who will seek to take advantage.
What are the
This is
rules
a harsh but
on Lucid?
real truth related to the human condition, related to our fundamentally fallen and flawed natures. This is especially true when the fraud implicates hard-earned taxpayer dollars and critical public programs and services. This is true whether we're talking about fraud in the context of the Feeding Our Future program or any other program in Minnesota, whether we're talking about welfare fraud in Mississippi, it being perpetrated by large multinational defense companies in the context of multi-billion-dollar contract they have with the Defense Department, traffic or other boundary or characteristic. So why do these things happen so much? Mostly they are caused by deep structural flaws, gaps, and weaknesses in our system of government. They're also driven by recalcitrance and resistance to change on the part of federal agencies. To put it shortly, fraud is a systemic problem and it requires systemic solutions. So what are these solutions? I'm pleased to share a few of them with you today. We must first look at watchdogs, critical sources of information, and practitioners of oversight from within the federal government itself. I'm specifically talking about inspectors general, the government.
I don't know the
accountability office, and
rules.
whistleblowers.
Does anyone know the
Rather
Lucid
than attacking,
rules?
firing, undermining, and intimidating these individuals and entities as this administration and its allies have done, we must strengthen, preserve, and protect them.
Order
We must enact
submitted.
I'm a
reforms to
little
make sure
bit
that IGs and
panicked. I
GAO
might
can
want to
perform
stop it
their
at
duties effectively and
1.5K
independently.
because I'm not sure
And we
about the
must add
consistency
additional safeguards
rules
to make sure
over
that
here.
whistleblowers can blow the whistle without fear of reprisal or retaliation.
I might
We must
stop
also take a
myself
long, hard
early,
look
even though I really
at the
do think it's
architecture
going to
currently in
run.
place for how we track,
I
monitor,
might
analyze,
stop
and
it at
assess federal funding.
1.5K.
To put
I'm
it
trying to
bluntly,
read the
that
rules in
architecture is
real
modernization.
time.
We need to enhance and improve the quantity, quality, timeliness, and integrity of the data and information we collect on federal funding. We need to promote more accountability, transparency, and compliance mechanisms within the chain of spending for federal funding. If we don't do this, we will never have a good grasp on where and what the ultimate impact is. Lastly, we must enact robust reforms and vigorous enforcement to crack down on corruption, cronyism, and conflicts of interest, which turbocharge waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. The presidential pardon is an acute example of this, with each of the last two administrations using the pardon power inappropriately to pardon convicted fraudsters. We must also promote reforms to crack down on the revolving door between agencies and industries, and to head off pay-to-play politics, all of which distort and corrupt
Order
decisions like the
canceled.
award of federal contracts. The takeaway here is simple. Focusing on individuals'
So
salacious,
if
scandalous
it's
examples of
black,
fraud is akin to looking at the symptoms
60%
and not looking at the
consistency,
disease or the root causes of the disease.
and 40% on a funded black.
The Project on Government Oversight stands ready, willing, and able to
Order
work with anyone here who
submitted.
wants to
Order
work on root
filled.
causes and systemic
Order
solutions so that we
canceled.
can
So
actually
I'm
get
done
our
over
hands
there.
around waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption in the federal government.
But
Thank
then
you
I'm
for
pretty
having me here today, and I
sure
look forward to
on
answering your
this
questions.
one, there's
Thank
no
you, Mr. Hetler-Gaudet. And
consistency because it was a
I forgot
flex
to mention,
account.
when you get about 10 seconds
Funded
left,
rules.
I'm here today to speak on behalf of all hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens here.
5
inside
minimum
of the
days of
United States.
profit,
Money
5
going
of
towards fraudsters
150.
as if it's no big deal.
So I don't think there's
As I speak here, I want to ask
any
everyone a question. How much do we trust when we pay our taxes it's going to benefit our
right
nation?
here.
People erupted during the Boston Tea Party over just a few percentages as they
I'm
believed
bouncing
they were being taxed
between
out of
these two.
representation.
So on
Nowadays, we
Lucid
have the
Black right
representation, whether we
here,
trust our representatives.
60% consistency to
My name is
pass.
Nick Shirley, and I made a 41-minute
So I stopped it at
video that I posted on
1.5
platforms
at
like X
50%
and YouTube.
consistency. Lucid
My video
Black.
received over 100 million views.
But then
and
I have
it
a
created instant change within our government.
funded
As the federal
flex
government
right
launched
here,
investigations
50K
in departments such as
funded
Health
rules.
and Human
There's
Services,
no
froze over
consistency.
$185 million in childcare funding until businesses can prove they are legitimate businesses. I actually became aware of the fraud that was happening in Minnesota in June of 2025
to
as I was there for a
live,
separate video, and Minnesotans started reaching out to me
So
asking
I
if I was
think I'm
making a video on
fine
fraud.
because
I
it
said,
stops
well,
at break
what
even.
fraud?
So I think I'm
And this lady,
already
she was a
good.
real estate agent,
Am I
and she
getting
says,
that right?
well,
Am
I'm
I
having a hard
messing
time
something
selling my
up?
properties because
I
people are
have
curious
one
about the
flex
assisted livings that are
right
popping up
here.
next door to some of the
This
houses that
one
are popping up,
highlighted.
home healthcare
The flex
clinics that are
is
popping up. We don't
already
know who's
funded.
next to these
Like
houses
this
that
is
we're trying to
funded, so
sell.
there's no consistency.
And I said,
I
well,
passed
I'm not
it
gonna
today
come
and I'm trading
and
it
make a
today.
video if I
The
don't have
black
any proof.
is an
So therefore, I
eval,
left
so I stopped it
Minnesota,
at
and I continued to
50%
look
because it's
for
60%.
fraud in the best way I could. And as I was getting my own information, a man by the name of David reached out to me and he said, hey, I have been investigating this fraud for years now. I have been driving by these child care centers. I've never seen a single child, and I have received information from
Folks,
the state
we're
of
all
Minnesota
waiting
as to
for
how much
Trump to
money
get
these
popping
places are
again
receiving. I said,
in
great,
about
let me go to
7
Minnesota
minutes.
and we'll make this video about potential fraud that was taking place inside of Minnesota. We go to a daycare, and I'm instantly surprised by what we see. We arrived, and it was an industrialized building, and there was 2 daycares registered at that daycare, at that building. And
Maybe we
first
have a
thing I
runner
noticed is all the
stops at
windows
break
are
even.
blacked out,
I don't really care.
And there's no footprints in the snow of any children. There's no playgrounds or anything that would make it look like it's a child care. But above me, a sign read, open 7
Good days
a.m.
for the
to 10
account.
p.m.
Folks, you could
There was
learn this
nobody
if you
there.
want.
The doorbell
Free
did not even
access
work.
right now. Code
And then we
Davos
continued
gets
to
you
go to
into the
other daycares,
Goonie
and we
Trading
noticed the same
Discord
pattern.
for free.
No
Give me
children,
1
blacked out
month to
windows,
prove to you
and
why
one
you should
daycare,
be in there. 100% free.
a learning
First
center,
month, no risk to
spelled
you.
Quality
Pinned
Learning
to the top
Center
of
instead
chat
of
in the
Quality
description of the
Learning
video.
Center. They had received $1.9 million, yet with that $1.9 million, they could not even spell leering right on their sign. Governor Walz has said he's been fighting fraud in Minnesota since 2019 and said the buck stops with him. However, how long would it take for you to notice $1 million leaving your bank account and not knowing where it's going? That's essentially what had been happening in Minnesota for years as billions of dollars. Theorist, he actually decided to drop out of re-election because I believe of how deep and extensive this fraud is.
Why not move the stop
Since my
above
reporting,
break even and
the
lock in some
HHS department
profit?
froze
It
over
is because of the
$185 million,
consistency.
and to
I already
this
did.
day,
Look
not
at,
a
I
single
locked in
business has
300,
been able to
stops
prove
at break even on the
proof
other
of
one.
legitimacy.
I had 2 trades. I went long,
How
I went
fast
long.
would
It
you
was
be proving that you are
a
a legitimate
2
business if you have
contract
children to
position.
actually feed and to take care
So
of?
even if
You
I get out at
support
break even, I've
instantly.
made $300.
I made this video to document the
Realized
widespread fraud that had
300,
been
stops
taking
at break
place,
even.
as I truly believe all fraud is bad. And people like me, my generation, we're sick of seeing tax dollars go towards fraud. We just want to have the same opportunities that our fathers and our grandparents had. And when you see people making millions of dollars by committing fraud, it upsets everybody from all age demographics. And so I hope today we can have a good
So
conversation.
basically, I'm just
I think we can all
hoping
agree
it
that
holds
fraud is
VWAP
bad,
and we pump
that
into
fraud is
close.
fraud. And I wish the best for our country, and I think that's what needs to be happening is to crack down on all forms
He's
of fraud.
really
So
not
thank you for
that
having
good
me,
of
and
a
God bless the
speaker,
USA.
is he?
Thank you, Mr.
Maybe
Shirley.
he's nervous.
And
I guess
now
I would be
recognize
super
Ms.
nervous in
Larson
front
for
of
your
Congress
5-minute
as
opening
well.
statement.
Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today on this issue. My name is Jennifer Larson. I'm the founder and CEO of Holland Center in Minnesota. I've been an autism provider for over 20 years and started the organization for my son. I built Holland Center because families with children like mine were desperate for help, desperate for services and stability, desperate for somewhere they could trust their child would be supported and helped, not sent home on a bad day, not babysat in a classroom and forgotten. We serve the children that don't succeed, but for hope, routine, and survival. This work is a labor of
And
love
there's
for me.
no consistency
Just like
rule
me,
on
there are
these
providers
flex
all over the
accounts,
state
so it
laboring with
doesn't
love
matter
to
to
help
me.
these
I'm
children.
not capping
And this week,
myself. If I
Holland
catch a
and
runner,
other
I catch a
programs all
runner.
over Minnesota are collapsing. Not because we committed fraud, but because a crime ring was allowed to operate inside Minnesota's service system, and the government's clumsy response is now destroying legitimate, long-standing providers and devastating families
With
that we serve.
no risk.
Families come to
That's
Holland, they
the
do
key
not have a
thing
backstop.
here.
Their children often receive 30
No
or more hours
risk.
of therapy a week. These are not an extravagance. These are
I'm hoping
medically
it bounces.
necessary. These children learn to communicate, regulate their emotions, reduce dangerous behaviors, and function in daily life. For many parents, therapy determines if they can work. Consistent staff and therapy prevents severe behaviors and regression. Structured care keeps children and their siblings safe. When services disappear, families do not just simply adjust. They face a crisis. For more than 2 decades, Holland has served hundreds of children year after year, employed hundreds of clinicians and staff, operated under yearly on-site audits, inspections, and documentation oversight. delivered real services to real children every day. We have always complied with everything the system required. Yet, within the last month, the state has withheld over $400,000 in Medicaid funds from my own program, and that number grows every single day. I had to infuse my personal funds to survive these weeks, but can't do that any longer without payment. Let me be clear, we are a fee-for-service industry. When we can't pay our staff, we lose our staff and children lose care. Families do not lose appointments, they lose the people they trust. What happened in Minnesota had nothing to do with the ethical, long-standing autism providers. What did happen was organized criminal networks that exploited autism services by opening fake centers, billing for children that did not exist, billing for services never delivered, and stealing millions of taxpayer dollars in the process. These are not minor compliance issues. They are criminal enterprises. Families trusted that the government was protecting the integrity of the system. It failed. Now, instead of doing the obvious thing and targeting criminal actors, the response has been to freeze everyone's payments. That decision does not punish the criminals. It punishes innocent children and families. As Medicaid payments are delayed due to prepayment review by an insurance company that is in the business of denying claims, providers are reducing hours, cutting staff, and starting to close. Families are scrambling for alternatives that don't exist, children are regressing, parents are leaving jobs to care for their disabled children. Autism therapy cannot be paused without consequences. Loss of services can erase years of progress in weeks, and abrupt disruption of services can cause lifelong consequences in these children. This is not abstract harm. It is daily trauma for families already carrying an extraordinary burden.
Order filled.
The simple solution to the problem, send the criminals to jail and allow trusted providers with decades of clean audits and verified ownership structures to continue providing prescribed ethical therapy and go back to paying them what we've earned and resume paying them on time. I built Holland for 20 years.
Order
Families built their lives around the care that we provide. All of that is risk of destruction today, not by fraud, but by clumsy government response that failed to distinguish between criminals and caregivers. It treats children with disabilities.
The gentlelady will suspend. We've got a photographer there. We allow photographers in here, but not between the panel of the witnesses and the members. You will please move.
Okay.
Photographer, please move.
Thank you.
Like right now.
Awkward, right when she's crying.
Sorry.
All
of that is at the risk of destruction. Sorry, can I continue?
Yeah, please continue.
Not by fraud, but the clumsy government response that fails to distinguish between criminals and caregivers. It treats children with disabilities as acceptable collateral damage. Fraud must be stopped and criminals prosecuted. I'm a taxpayer. I live in Minnesota. This is disgusting. But families and children should never pay the price for government failure. Thank you.
We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr.
All right, Trump should be speaking somewhat soon. This says 2 p.m. Let me reload it just to make sure. Should be starting very, very soon.
And I just want to say,
just replaying that.
Ms. Larson, I live in northern Wisconsin. There's an autism school that was started in my community. Where did we visit when we wanted to start that a decade ago? We came to Minnesota, where you have been leaders in having good autism programs. And I think about the tremendous fraud that has gone on in nutrition programs, housing programs, but is there anything more heinous than abusing an autism?
So hard to believe that
Weird
people are
cuts on
faking
this video.
that children have autism and stealing money from the government. When I'm sitting here with my 25-year-old non-speaker, and now children like my son aren't going to have services because they stole money from the government and faked these things. And it is, like I said, disgusting.
With what's going on right now, what are the families that you're serving? What are they saying?
They're scared.
What are they doing?
Everybody's scared. There are centers that are programs that have already shut down. Staff are leaving. I, this week, asked my staff who will take unpaid leave because we can't keep going like this. I'm like I said, I'm $400,000 plus in debt now, and I'm not sure these are going to get paid back. I went to a bank, and they wouldn't back the receivable because they said that's not a receivable. If it's prepayment review, you may not get it.
And Ms. Larson, Mr. Dexter, could have something been done about this earlier?
Yes. As I stated in my opening testimony, in the years that I worked there, we identified how fraud was occurring, the loopholes that existed, and we.
What were some of the warning signs, Mr. Dexter?
Well, the fact that part of our job was to go and collect attendance records. We would find attendance records that were either incomplete, non-existent. Obviously, there were times we found them to be fabricated because they were given to us way later, and the same with billing records. They were allowed 30 days after the end of the billing period to submit billing records, so they were not immediately available to us, and it kind of allowed overpayments or double payments to be overlooked. So we had the attendance record issue. We had the fact that there was no way to verify who was signing the children in and out. no way to verify what time.
Second trade is now a
those children
freebie
were
trade.
signed in
We're
and
just
out.
running this
Cutting a
account
follow-up
up
here. In
because
Wisconsin,
I don't
we
think
learned,
there's a
this month
consistency
that
rule.
Ibrahima Diop, a Minneapolis school finance boss, placed on leave for failing to submit
I think I
required
could just
financial
keep
paperwork
trading
with
it.
the Minneapolis School District and for signing questionable contracts.
All right,
linked
is
to the
Trump
small
rocking
fraud
yet?
scandal, was hired by the Milwaukee Public School System as a deputy
It says 2
superintendent at a
p.m.
salary of
It's 2:02.
$240,000 a year. Do you think it wise? Might that be a warning sign
This
that
is a
person was
replay
involved,
and
may have been
CNBC.
involved
We're
in
just
fraud in
waiting.
Minneapolis?
It should be starting
Shouldn't they be
any
concerned in Wisconsin
minute,
that
folks.
this is
Any
fraud, that
minute,
they're hiring
any
someone
minute.
like that?
Well, if somebody that they hire has a past history and practice of doing that type of stuff, I would be very leery of it
Well, that's
occurring
unfortunate.
again, or
It
that
hit
being
97.
the basis that they're hired.
So Governor Evers refused to open the books and is blocking federal audits of our food stamp and Medicaid programs. And he also vetoed 4 auditor
Come on.
positions in a recent budget. Do you think that is also a warning sign?
And the ability to audit and look at the records to make sure can have a check and balance system, I think that'd be very unwise because, again, that allows fraud to occur.
Because, Mr. Shirley, what is happening in Minnesota, it could be happening throughout the United States. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Order
If
filled.
there's one thing we've learned or leered, as they say in Minneapolis.
Order filled.
All right, locked in 1K.
Isn't it possible that this is
Order
happening?
It didn't
Canceled.
keep going the way I
Yes,
wanted it to, but right there. So locked in 1.5K
Chairman yields. I
on
now
the
recognize
black
the ranking
and
member opening Mr.
1K
West for
on
his
the
5 minutes.
flex.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I'm new with these ones, trying to figure
thank
out
all the
the
witnesses
rules.
for your excellent testimony. Mr. Hedler-Gaudet, the administration is systematically
More than
undermined
willing to buy
government
more
oversight.
if there's a dip.
The president has fired more than a dozen inspectors general, not for any cause, but seemingly just in retaliation for doing their jobs and to block unwanted investigations.
Matt,
President Trump has
what up?
defunded
Apologize
the
in
Council of
advance.
Inspectors General on integrity and efficiency. He's removed independent leadership at the Office of Special Counsel and Office of Government Ethics, blockading whistleblowers and numerous investigations. What is your assessment, Mr. Hedler-Gaudet, of the Trump administration's apparent systematic opposition to internal oversight mechanisms in the federal government?
Year or so has been one of the most anti-oversight, anti-accountability periods that I've witnessed in our federal government. And I think the things you laid out, as well as others, are the sort of proof in the pudding there. And I think speaking of things that should be giving
Weird.
us
We're
pause
all
and raising red
leered in
flags, that
today.
should all be giving us serious pause and raising serious red flags about how seriously people who claim to take oversight,
Super
accountability,
serious.
fraud, how seriously do they actually take it?
There's been a lot of attention given to Donald Trump's extraordinary use of the pardon power, as in the pardon of violent insurrectionists and cop beaters.
there is
but there's also
consistency
been
on black,
a forgiveness
but
of
not
$1.5
on
billion
flex.
in
We either have a
restitutionary
DLL.
fines that various people had to pay, and a lot of them are fraudsters. The DOJ in Trump's
You
first
could get
term
paid
brought
out
bank fraud and
earlier.
tax evasion charges against reality $2 million in restitution to taxpayers and to their victims. But then Trump suddenly inexplicably pardoned them and forgave a free card, jubilantly exclaiming, "The feds got effed." Let me give you one other example. Trump on April 23rd issued a pardon for Paul Walchuk, a former nursing home exec who pleaded guilty to multiple tax crimes. What he was doing was taking millions of dollars from the nurses and orderlies and doctors who worked for him at his facilities, took more than $10 million, used the money to buy a $2 million yacht and to pay for high-end
A yacht
jet
is
travel.
just an
and to go
aspect of
shopping
business,
at
man.
Bergdorf Goodman and Cartier. Well, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison for stealing his
We're just
employees'
waiting
tax
for Trump.
withholdings. And he was ordered to pay his employees back $4.4 million for the money he looted from their accounts. So he's going to have to pay that back.
Soon.
But then he got his mom to go to a glitzy fundraising dinner for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and she paid $1 million for her ticket. Then, right after Trump was inaugurated in his second term, Walchuk petitioned for a presidential pardon, arguing that he, with forgiveness of all of the financial fines and restitution, that Mr. Walchuk was going to have to pay back to his workers, the nurses and doctors and orderlies. So that was forgiven. That was $4 million taken away from the victims of a fraud and given back to the perpetrator of the fraud. Okay, now, if we had all day, we could go on all day with this, because that's how they're systematically in the government and in crimes in different industries.
I think it provides a perverse
Well,
incentive
this
structure.
is why you use risk management,
I opened my
because
statement
I
by
would
saying
now
we all have
be
we
red
all have an
on
obligation
the
and a
play.
responsibility to do what
So
we can to
instead of
all one
being
needs to
red,
do
I
is,
locked in the $1,000.
contribute to the
You never
right
know.
Uber PAC or
Yes,
attend
it
the right
could have
fundraiser
bounced, and I would have been
and
more
accountability
green,
and
but I
activation
care
like
more
the way,
about the
including the
what
financial
if
institutions
of
you
if
mentioned.
I'm
So
wrong and
those
it
kinds of actions
changes.
are
That's what I care
direct cross
far more
purposes of
about.
Any effort to promote a broader, more
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dexter, let me make sure we got this right. you get tips and complaints, whistleblowers or others come to you and tell you something's not right at these child care centers in your state that are getting all kinds of taxpayer money. Is that right? That's how it started?
Matt
That's
testifying
correct.
in purple.
And then you go and do your work. And you got 28 years experience investigating things, and specifically in the crime and financial fraud area. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you go out and find out these child care
Potential
centers,
VWAP bounce
there aren't
here?
any kids. No kids are there. I mean, there's some, but there's like, you don't see the playgrounds. You don't see any kids at a place where they're supposed to be helping children. And then you also find out most of them are run by Somali individuals. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And then you make some recommendations. You said, here's what we should do. I think you put this on page 2 of your testimony. You said there's some basic things you should do. No, you said they didn't have biometric attendance system. They should do that. They should have electronic submission requirements.
I might be
They
interested.
need security
Seems like
cameras.
it's
You made
easy
some
money.
recommendations. Toward your recommendations, they called you a racist, right?
Correct.
Typical left. I always say the left will tell a lie. Big media will report it. You tell the truth. They call you a racist. Exactly what happened here. So they ignore your recommendations. They call you a racist. But it even got worse than that. You can imagine. They started investigating you. Is that right?
Yes, we were interviewed by an outside firm for a report.
We're just waiting on
into
Trump,
the Office
folks.
of
I haven't
Legislative
forgotten.
What did that report look like? What did they say? They call you a racist? What did the report say?
The report basically questioned our investigative tactics, looked at how our unit was managed.
Even though you had 28 years experience in this particular area, tips and whistleblowers came
Is
to
he
you,
gonna
even though that
take
was a
out
whole
60?
catalyst for doing this.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And the end result is what? The end result is Miss Larson, who's actually helping people, she
Correct.
suffers and the people she helps suffers. Is that right, Miss Larson? Not to mention the fact that taxpayers are getting ripped off, but the people who do good work, who actually help people,
Where's Trump
you suffer.
speaking from
Disabled
Davos
are paying for
that you have coming up
money
here?
stolen.
Davos
Yeah.
getting interviewed by
Why do you think all this is
CNBC's
the case?
Joe Kernan.
I mean, all this brings me to seems to be a typical pattern.
We're
But
just
in the end, you got to
waiting
ask
on
why.
it.
Why was, when you point out what's going on, you have good people doing good work who suffer, the taxpayers are getting ripped off. Someone's got to ask, well, why did they take not follow your recommendations, call you a racist, investigate you instead of just fixing the problem? Why'd they do that? What could be the answer? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Mr. Shirley, you want to hazard a guess? Why that's the case?
Well, they simply use that as a deflection technique to make you not want to speak out against the fraud.
Yeah, it seems to me it's politics, though. You think it's politics, Mr. Dexter?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the people at the top like, well, we don't want to do this. We don't want to be called racist. In fact, we found that out a week ago in a hearing where we were looking at this and they said, we're going to stop payment, and then it restarted. And the reason it restarted is because they threatened a racial discrimination lawsuit against the authorities there in Minnesota. So, okay, forget about the fact that when we do this, we restart the money, we're going to hurt good people like Ms. Larson and the people she helps and rip off the taxpayers. We're going to do it all for politics. And we also found, interestingly enough, the Attorney General in Minnesota had a meeting with the key folks in this particular program, and then they find out a couple weeks later they start sending him campaign contributions. I think it's politics. I think it's politics driving it all. And that's why it's appropriate we're investigating here at the congressional level. That's why it's appropriate the Department of Justice has put in place a specific individual to focus on this, not only in Minnesota, but around the country.
Is he going to take out 60 here?
Yield 20 seconds, remaining my time to the chairman.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hedler-Godet, would it surprise you that Joe
Quickly
Biden
took it out, got
issued
smacked.
pardons to someone named Crundell, who had the largest municipal fraud in the country's history and had a restitution amount of $53.7 million that was never paid following the commutation? Would that surprise you, sir?
That would not surprise me. And actually, in my written statement, I outline how
Quick pop, hit
pardons
that
under
sell-side
the
liquidity,
last
got
administration, Biden
smacked.
administration, they also fall into the same pattern of pardoning convicted fraudsters. So I'm in agreement with you there.
Yeah, thank you. And without objection, that time's expired, so without objection, Mr. Klein will be permitted to participate in today's hearing for the purpose of questioning the witness if a member yields him time for that purpose. And now we're going to go to Mr. Moore from Alabama.
Anyway, that's another pardon for another day. Ms. Larson, I'm impressed with your son. I honestly thought he was your attorney when you guys were sitting there. But were there early warning signs, if acted on, that could have prevented the fraud schemes from growing to the scale that we see now?
I'd say yes. Looking back, the Somali community in Minnesota has a high prevalence of autism, and I know that because I serve a lot of minorities.
Well, why is that?
So when these centers started popping up, I thought, good for them. You know, like
Is it
I
'cause
took
they
care of my
take,
son. We haven't had a
Tylenol?
waiting list for 5 years, so I thought it was a positive. And then it just
Is it
started
a
to go and
Tylenol
go.
issue?
And go out and go see, because obviously I'm busy and that's not what I have time for. But I think there were a lot of early warning signs. I think if anybody was actually paying attention.
Audits, I think, every year, right?
Every year.
So how is it that these groups are getting away with it, and you're under the thumb of the government
What's with the
auditing you every year?
jumpiness?
Why do you think that is?
Either
when
there's a
are
double
we
standard
starting
and they
with this?
Don't, for whatever reason, have the same expectations that we do. or they're just looking.
Maybe Chairman Jordan was onto something. Maybe it's politics.
Yeah.
Mr. Shirley, now I guess investigative journalists are known as right-wing social media influencers. So can you confirm how many daycare centers you personally visited in Minnesota during your investigation?
During that first video, we went to around 7.
How did you select those facilities? I know you said earlier footprints in the snow, but how is it that you identified those facilities to go to initially?
So the man David in the video, he had the daycares with the CCAP funding, and we just simply drove around Minnesota and around Minneapolis area.
Took a lot of courage to do that, I would imagine. Probably more so now than what it was when you initially did it. 100 million views, you said.
Yes, over 140 million views on X alone.
So what was Mr. David's
But
background?
remember, views aren't views. Views are how many times people just see that tweet, not necessarily watching it. That's a little bit
I just happened to read his,
not
and he
fully
provided me the information,
accurate.
so I gave him a phone call.
When you go to
just
Twitter
went to those different facilities.
and
What
you
was
see this,
probably the most
views,
interesting
that's just
thing
how
as
many
you were
people
doing
saw
this?
the
I
tweet.
think
It's
I
not
saw
how
the
many,
video.
like for example,
We watched it.
if I go to
There
this,
was a number of facilities like in the
there
same
are
building.
1K
Yes.
views.
So in one
That
building,
doesn't
there
mean
was,
they
I believe,
watched the video
3
1,000
daycares,
times.
and
It's
there
just
was
how
no
many
children,
people
and they were
saw
all
this
receiving
tweet.
CCAP
They
funding
saw the
for
tweet
separate
1,000
daycares. There was one
times.
daycare we went to that one day it was closed by the government, and then that same day it was reopened underneath another name. And they both received CCAP funding.
I bet, Ms. Larson, they probably weren't getting audited nearly like you were.
I would guess not.
So how many daycares are there in Minneapolis we think are fraudulent right now? Mr. Shirley, any idea? Are the amount of money total? You got any idea on that?
Well, they've frozen over $185 million, and not a single business has been able to prove that they're a legitimate business yet.
It's 185 million for sure.
Wow,
Mr. Dexter, I got a question for you. What common
185
patterns or
million in
warning signs usually
daycare
indicate
fraud
that the provider of the
in
program
one
may be
urban
committing
area.
fraud? As you were doing your
Multiply that out by
investigations and
all
28 years of
urban areas.
experience, What are some of the
Holy
indicators
shit.
that you see that maybe that should be a telltale sign or a red flag that there's fraud there?
Well, one of the immediate signs that we saw when we would go out to first look at the location is where that was located. A lot of times they were located in commercial areas, and I'm not talking like strip malls or anything like that. I'm talking about like industrial areas where you wouldn't typically find a child care center. We would notice that there was no play area, and if there was any play equipment,
Are the Bulls going to step back in right here? It's hugging this 50 EMA. We sold off, flat. I think the market's waiting for Trump to talk. There's sellers at 230, excuse me, 265, and buyers at 230.
We would sit and watch it for a couple of days before we even put up surveillance cameras. We would watch, and we would see little to no children present. If anything, there would
Little
be
children.
a few kids.
As you begin to blow the whistle, the investigator became
Gentleman's
investigator.
time has expired.
I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the ranking member, Ms. McGrath.
Spiked up for a second
you.
there, quickly got
Sure. When
smacked.
he
I'm
began
watching
his
these
second
guys
term,
at
President
65
Trump
on
broke from
NQ.
historic norms and fired 17 inspectors general, people who serve as critical watchdogs and prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. A federal judge held that these firings were illegal, but also held that she could not reinstate these people due to their important roles. As a result, the president has been able to appoint acting inspectors general who have themselves been removed after informing Congress that Trump officials are not cooperating with investigations. Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, how do these frequent firings affect the ability of the Inspector General offices to prevent and investigate fraud?
I think they fundamentally undermine it. To do something that could upset the powers that be suddenly becomes a bit of a risky proposition. And so between the completely undermining them and the chilling effect, you are really dampening and damaging the ability to do real oversight.
Thank you. And how does the politicization of Inspector General appointments affect the morale and effectiveness of career investigative staff there within these offices?
It also has a severely negative effect.
The entire
on
smelling
morale
thing
and
is a
efficacy
huge
within the office.
misconception. They were teaching the
Says, "I
young
believe
small
we can and
children
should do
how
more
to fly
prevent fraud and
Learjets.
improve
Actually really
oversight so that all of our
wholesome.
government efforts are
Oh,
doing the most that they can to help
that's
the American
nice.
people. When the Judiciary
That's
Committee
nice.
marked up the Republicans' partisan big ugly spending bill, I offered an amendment that would dedicate half of 1% of funding to be used for oversight and fraud improvement and prevention. My Republican colleagues, they opposed the amendment. Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, in your opening statement, you spoke on steps that 7 ways Congress should sharpen its oversight in 2026.
Spy flat drifting down. Mag 7 just completely
Without objection.
flat.
Thank you.
To clarify,
Is
we
there
are
anything
still
else that you
waiting
wanna
for
highlight from
Trump.
those
At this
recommendations?
point, he's an hour and
Sure,
16
yeah, I just
minutes
wanna,
late.
pause
I'm
to
not
note
losing my
that
mind. I promise
Congress
you,
really
it was
is the
supposed to start
indispensable
at
actor
1.
when it comes to doing oversight.
I
There's supposed to be a
promise.
somewhat adversarial relationship between the branches, and Congress is supposed to be the primary adversary when it comes to the other 2 branches and conducting oversight. But that is predicated on Congress taking that oversight duty seriously, irrespective of who is in charge of the other 2 branches. And so I think there's a political will issue there with oversight, but also there are some mechanical issues. So Congress could do a better job of holding hearings that are a bit more bipartisan, a bit more focused on the facts, as opposed to the sizzle of a given anecdote or scandal. I mean, really trying to get at root causes and really trying to take hard, deep looks at the underlying structural reasons why things like fraud happen. It's not as sexy. It's not going to get you.
What is this one? Oh, shit. Did I just lose it? Right here. Why do I have so many Twitter pages open?
The Danish foreign minister rejected what you said in your speech that you were hoping to negotiate to acquire Greenland, essentially saying that this is not something that they are willing to discuss. So what will those negotiations
Well, they didn't tell me that. So when they tell me, because I don't like getting it secondhand, if he wants to tell me, he'll tell me that to my face.
And when will you be discussing this?
I have no idea.
Dude.
I'll be discussing it with this man, right?
Tell it to my face.
Frankly, more important.
President Trump after Denmark rejects his demand for negotiations on Greenland. Yeah, I don't like getting it secondhand. Tell me to my face. Dude, like, what world are we living in right now? Tell it to my face, brother. Our version of the simulation is a wild one. It's a bit chaotic, I must admit, but at least we get a lot of laughs. As
many views on social media, but it's going to actually ideally lead to long-term, sustainable, durable reforms that can really crack down on the problem.
Thank you. And so the short-lived Doge office was supposed to cut fraud. Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, what did it actually do, and how did its actions actually affect everyday Americans?
So Doge was a complete failure. Even on its own terms, the primary progenitor of Doge claimed that he was going to find $2 trillion, then he moved that down to $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse cut spending. But in 2025, we actually spent more money than we spent in 2024.
No, hang on. Pause. Finland President Stubb says Europe can defend itself without the United States. I am 100% sure this is a serial killer. This is an AI NPC serial killer, Terminator from the future sent back to us. No way, no how is this not a deadly robotic assassin. There's nothing in those eyes. There's just the abyss reflected back at you. No fucking way is this not the most brutal, vicious serial killer. Look under this guy's floorboards, because holy shit. Oh my Lord.
Of this fiscal
anyway,
year in October,
I digress.
We ran the largest opening month budget deficit ever run before at $285 billion.
That's
we
a
have
Green
hollowed out
Goblin,
the key
dude.
functions of a bunch of agencies. So any claims that Doge was effective either on cutting spending or promoting effectiveness or efficiency are just flat out undermined and undercut by the facts.
And Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, because you have done investigations yourself, did you do any follow-up on Mr. Shirley's video?
So personally, I took a look at some of what had been done to try and backstop what Mr. Shirley indicated in his video by professional journalists at CBS and by professional oversight practitioners like the Inspector General in Minnesota. And as it turns out, they had a difficult time substantiating what Mr. Shirley was claiming to be true in his video. And in fact, they found countervailing evidence, including having been provided security footage by one of those daycares of children being dropped off the very day that Mr. Shirley was supposedly there. So I think in my view, I would have to, I think I'd err on the side of believing the professional journalist at CBS and the professional oversight practitioners at the
I
Inspector General
wouldn't
office.
err on the side of trusting professional mainstream media.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so on
I
that
guess
note,
we all
I think
make
it's
our own
important that we return
decisions.
to a discussion
Is he
of
on
how
yet?
these
Nope, I keep
investigations were
checking.
conducted and the type of evidence that led to the discovery of this massive fraud. One thing that is
We're
clear
waiting.
based on the testimony today is that this is
waiting.
not just a Minnesota problem. This is a warning sign for every state that it is administering large-scale programs using taxpayer dollars. And we need to get to the bottom of how to identify this type of fraud and prevent it from continuing to occur. So, Mr. Dexter, I'd like to go back to your testimony, both what you have shared with us already about your extensive background investigating and analyzing
for this
program
breakout of
fraud, and the methods that you
65.
used to identify the theft of taxpayer dollars in this particular type of case. In your written testimony, you mentioned that case selection and investigations were begun in part by looking at funding data. And I am interested in how your office would use things like funding data, use statistics, and other information and evidence to begin to develop these cases.
Well, it wasn't hard to find the funding amounts. We looked at the centers that received CCAP funds And then we listed them out. We had what was originally referred to as the top 100 list, and it was based off of centers receiving the most CCAP funding, and that was generated through the billing process and the people that administer the funds.
And when you looked at that list, did it turn out that there were certain facilities that were outliers in some way, either because they were receiving a larger amount of funding based on student population than appeared typical, or because of where they were located? Tell us how you identified which facilities warranted further review.
Well, when we started looking at the centers that were receiving the most funds, the investigators were each assigned cases, were assigned centers, and we first started looking into what the billing pattern was, or what the billing amount was, how many children were being billed at these centers, and we would have centers that were billing for 120 plus children. And looking at the different days and times, kind of establishing a pattern that just was outside the realm of a typical daycare center.
So in other words, you used objective data and evidence as the foundation to proceed further with your investigations.
Yes, in order to start the investigation.
Taking out these guys at 65.
And in your experience, wouldn't you also say that that is the typical method or atypical method for beginning and analyzing a potential fraud case of any nature in any community?
Yes, because in order to do the investigation, you first have to find out if it warrants an investigation and to what extent that investigation would be.
And now, isn't it also correct, you mentioned in your testimony systemic weaknesses that allowed the large-scale fraud, even after you had developed substantial evidence that there was in fact fraud
Order
occurring,
filled.
that there were institutional and systemic barriers that prevented you from successfully moving these cases through prosecution. And indeed, in your testimony, you note that in 2019, you chose to retire because the process had become so constrained that meaningful work was no longer possible. Tell us about the barriers and ultimately that profound frustration that led you to retire.
Well, when we were originally hired, when this unit was originally created and we were hired with the understanding that our job was going to be to investigate fraud and stop it. And as we proceeded through with that, it wasn't by our doing that it turned out.
Hell yeah. We've gone from 7 to 8 followers on Facebook.
But once that was
the world is my
brought
oyster.
out to light, the roadblocks that were put in front of us, being called racist, being called before these boards to be investigated, and basically it wound up turning us into auditors. We wound up just simply reviewing
only 92 more to
attendance
go.
records and matching them up with billing. There really wasn't a
We
lot
are
of substantial
still
investigation
waiting
anymore.
for Trump to
Most
get
of our cases
rocking with
wound up going
CNBC.
before
It says 2
administrative
p.m.
hearings rather than criminal.
I don't know if we've been given updates or not.
Chair recognizes now the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my colleague from Florida, thank you for that line of questioning. I'm going to pick up where she left off. In regards to the testimony that we've heard today, the other side of the aisle makes us believe, or wants us to believe, that the fraud has been effectively stopped, that they aggressively pursued it, they prosecuted it, and that it is under control. Is that your interpretation of where we are, Mr. Dexter?
I believe the fraud is still going on. I don't think anything has changed. From what I've seen with Mr. Shirley's videos, I'm seeing in his videos the exact same things that we were seeing back from 2014 to 2019 when I worked there.
And it's astounding to me when I was looking at some of the footage, the evidence. There was almost a sense of we are owed this
attitude like that, that we were taking away their money and that it wasn't fair to them.
In your investigation, sir, was the fraud as obvious as it seems to me that it
What
appeared in
Facebook
the
page?
videos and the other evidence that I reviewed?
For you
Yes,
to
as a
be
matter of
able
fact,
to
when we would go out
stream
to
on
do our
Facebook, you have to have
investigations, one of the
100
things that,
followers.
we would have to do,
I
or I would have
don't.
to do, is we would scout out a location for our surveillance cameras that allowed us direct line of sight.
Unfortunately,
centers, all their
because I'm not a
accesses.
popular
A lot of
guy.
that because of the location where we were in these
But
industrial
my
commercial areas,
managers are
meant we
telling
had
me
to go to
Facebook is the
businesses
newest
and
and
ask them
bestest
permission.
thing.
And the number one comment they made was,
Right
"Oh,
here.
you mean that daycare
The-
center over there where there's no children?"
The Matt
So everyone
Kohrs
else
show.
around it
Just,
saw it.
I'm up to
In regards
9.
your investigation, sir, I'm assuming that you did not just investigate.
This is what it
daycare
must
fraud. What other
feel
types
like
of
to
fraud
be
did you
Mr.
investigate?
Beast.
No, our function was
I just got
strictly
stopped out of one
childcare
for
fraud.
break even.
Right. Some of that overlapped
Fuck.
into, even though we didn't investigate it,
How
a lot of it was
could you
also
do
tied
this to
into the
me?
medical transportation. And
Did you ever
food.
investigate single entities that were appearing as though they were committing fraud in multiple
Order
multiple
submitted.
avenues?
I can't
sorry,
believe
So it was
that.
like, was there one facility that was a daycare? It was also associated with the medical transport. Were there people who were double dipping in the fraud in your investigation?
Order filled.
Not that we saw as far as different organizations, but there were where
Order
one daycare
submitted.
center owner owned multiple daycare centers. So what we saw was more within the daycare center.
Yep. Ms. Larson, thank you for being here. I echo my colleague's sentiment from Alabama. Your son is very impressive. What's his name?
His name is Caden.
Caden, thank you for being here today. You look sharp. You're doing great. Let me just talk to you about these various audits that you were subjected to. How rigorous were they?
Very. They'd be there for hours, come in and say, I want to see these files for these kids at this date and this time.
Was there any way that you could have tricked them, concealed it? If you had not had any children there, would it have been possible?
Order filled.
Absolutely not.
In regards to the services that you've rendered, first, thank you.
Got stopped out
And then
of
in
one,
terms of the
still
budgets
have
that
the
you
other.
require, how does it make you feel when you hear firsthand accounts that hundreds of millions of dollars have been taken out of the country in suitcases to hostile nations?
I can't even respond the way I feel about that, but I will say it's still happening. To the questioning, there's only 2 autism centers that have actually been shut down of all of these that are going on. So what they're doing is this prepayment review and putting us through this AI system at Optum to look for suspicious claims, which is why our funds are being held. And it's not going to work. I'm going to tell you, it's not going to work. They just need to do what Nick did. Go and see that there's no kids there. Go and check it out.
And what Mr. Dexter did.
Order.
Data-driven review.
Whoa!
Without any
What
preconceptions,
the
without any
fuck
prejudices.
was that?
And then holding the fraud. Many patients, diverse patients. How have those
What
patients
happened?
Been harmed?
I somehow
by this
made some
administration
money,
in
but
Minnesota,
what
all
in
administration?
what in
Are all being harmed if I
tarnation?
shut down next week.
Whoa,
Is that
what?
what you're up against?
Well, if I haven't gotten paid now, the last date of service was December 5th.
Well,
I'm
I
over
have
$400,000 in debt.
never.
Almost $250,000 every 2 weeks.
25 seconds ago, we got
Sunday
something
night,
from
I'll know if I
Trump
get any
on
money.
True
I
Social.
haven't been paid
Shut
a
up,
dime.
lady. Based upon a very productive meeting that I've had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed a framework for a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, as in they have to have sex, will be a great one for the U.S. and all NATO nations. Based upon the understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1st. No more tariffs. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be available as discussions progress. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and various others as needed will be responsible for the negotiations. They will report directly to me. Thank you for your attention on the matter. No more tariffs. Apparently, all that has to happen is who has to have sex? Secretary General of NATO. I'm confused on who has to have sex here. Mark Rutte. Interesting. I think the leader of Greenland and then the Secretary General of NATO have to have sex. I believe. I think once that happens, then there's no more tariffs, I believe is what's happening. But we'll see. Or is it Trump and the Secretary General of NATO? All I know is as soon as someone bones, no more tariffs. That's exactly why the market just ripped. I was way too slow to move my profit target. It did lock me in. I can't complain, but obviously I got out at 293 and it's 150 points higher. So that's a bit of a bummer for me. Trump and the Greenland. So literally just Trump and all of Greenland. That's what's going on. That's crazy, dude. Seems like the whole gang. You guys have problems. You guys have problems. So anyway, that's why the market's up. Locking in some money. And with that excitement, folks, you can join the brand new revised Goonie Trading Discord for free. First month for free if you use the code Davos. DAVOS. Good for today. In for the Discord. Entire month free. Use that code Davos. It is good for today. Pinned to the top of chat in the description of the video. And whether you made or you lost money today, you technically already paid for the Discord because it is free. FREE. First month is free. If you like it, stick around. If it is not for you, just cancel your account within the first month and you're never going to be charged anything. Great. Now Bonnie Blue has to top that. We're never going to get to where we need to be. Wow. What a pop. What a pop that was. Well, tariffs are off the menu, boys. I think I just locked in a little bit more money. Let's see. Why in the world should you... Is this going yet? We're still waiting. Nope. Do you think they're going to televise it? You think they're going to televise it? Probably not. That might be more of an OnlyFans thing. All right, we did lock in this trade. I double dipped on my first trade of the day. You could see here, when did I do this? Completed. I sold it for 80 cents at what time? Does it tell you the time? Right there, 9:57 this morning. I sold SPX put credit spreads, not 790 by 780, and I was able to just collect on that. It just filled at what the time somewhere, but you could see I got to fill at 12 cents. So sold it for 80, bought it back for 12. Not a bad deal. What's that? 68 times 10, $680 locked in on that one singular trade. Webull, I already showed you guys, and I guess I could show you how it looks within the Discord just so there's no confusion. You come to the Discord, you could see swing trades. I did get into a new position today. Thick trades right here, sold for 105. Bought it back for 20, 85 times 20. That's 1,600 plus another 600. So that's going to be 2.2K on options today. Lots of stuff going on there. This is why you should join up with the Discord. And then other than that, you can see I made a shitload of money trading futures today. This is actually probably my best singular trading futures day in about a year. Dude, it starts at 3 p.m. now? No. Did they punt it again? That actually really hurt my throat, if you care. Are you fucking kidding me? They punted it another hour just because Trump has to have sex with the people of Greenland? Or maybe the Secretary of NATO or something? Just because that? I mean,
Trump is calling off his tariff threat on a number of NATO countries. Remember, the president had threatened to put in 10% tariffs on February 1st and raise them as the months go along because those NATO countries had sent troops to Greenland. The president now just posting on Truth Social and saying that based upon a very productive meeting that I've had with the Secretary General of NATO, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. The president going on to say, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1st. He says additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. He lists a number of officials who are participating in negotiations here, Brian. So a couple of important things. One is this is the president retracting that tariff threat that he had put in. The second is that the president says they've formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland. Not clear what that means. Does that mean a full acquisition of Greenland, as the president said in his speech to the World Economic Forum this morning that the United States needs? Or does that mean some sort of basing Golden Dome missile defense
Hey, Matt, want to join Discord? How do I link it after I subscribe? All you have to do is go to the link pinned to the top of chat. It's a whole new system, far easier.
They're ripping, and we got Craig Johnson at the ready here.
Can't accept the Discord invite from the website? What are you talking about?
We don't know, and I want to remind our viewers that Joe Kernan is scheduled to be interviewing
everyone
President
else is
Trump
getting in
basically right now.
Supernova, just DM me if you have an issue or something.
They have not begun yet.
Everybody can see the feed but us. So Eamon Javers breaking that news. Thank you, Eamon.
I want to move the stop to break even here. I'm going to give it a second.
Of a deal, Eamon, with NATO. Obviously, Denmark is a part of NATO, but Greenland is a part, effectively, of Denmark. I don't know. Maybe you do. Does that NATO potential deal speak for Denmark?
It's a really good question. What the president's saying in this Truth Social post is that he had this productive meeting with the Secretary General of NATO.
Are you going to the right website? There's no new invite. You just sign up on this website, and then you'll be able to link your Discord once you're logged in.
Agree to whatever this potential framework is. But remember, we've seen the president say in the past that he's got frameworks of deals in a trade context, not in a national security context, but in a trade context.
If you have any issues, contact me right here. Contact, full name, email, question. It'll come right to me, and I will personally respond to you. Contact, right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
A very significant de-escalatory signal
from the President of the United States. You saw the first de-escalatory signal during his speech when he said, I won't use force. Now he's saying, I won't use tariffs. This is a climb down by the President of the United States from that very threatening posture. He's obviously heard something that he likes in those conversations with NATO, or market reaction has served sort of as a guardrail here. And the president said, I don't want to necessarily spook the markets any further than I've done. So we don't know the motivation for it, but clearly the president backing off a second big threat to the NATO nations here just within the same day.
Our audience, I know I do. I certainly have deja vu on this moment, Eamon, when I remember sitting here almost exactly this time last April when the president backed off of his Liberation Day tariffs and the Dow shot up almost 2,000 points in an instant with a Truth Social post. So here we are again.
Filled.
Yeah, this one, obviously not in terms of scale as big as the Liberation Day climb down. But obviously, because of the nature of this tariff dispute and land dispute with Denmark over Greenland,
this is when you're going to start to see the Vanna rally.
Political flashpoint.
Why? Because look at all those puts, and actually they started telling it way before
about an actual shooting war between the United States and Denmark and Greenland. In Greenland, if the United States were to attack and try to use military force, as the president said, and his staff said, military force was on the table to take it, forcibly from Denmark. Now the president backed off that force threat earliher today.
Dude, we were making
so
much money today.
Right now.
Yeah, threat of a shooting war. I know Eisenhower talked about it in 1955, wrote a letter to the Joint Chiefs of Staff about it. Obviously, nothing happened. Glad it's off the table either way. Eamon Javers with the breaking news that's moving markets. We still got Craig Johnson, Chief Market Technician at Piper. Hey, Craig, how do you like it? You come on the show. We're gonna talk about whatever we're going to talk about. Now you get the breaking news. Markets ripping higher. And folks, can
Discord
we put the
being
SML
try
small
logging
cap
out of
600
everything
index up?
because I'm seeing a lot of other
Craig,
people are getting
at
in
the
right
top,
now
you
without
said the
an
markets
issue.
are moving, quote, down cap. Guess what? All the markets are ripping right now. Small caps.
Are other people currently having issues like Supernova, or is this like a one-off Discord issue?
Even with the big now
But
move
like the
that we
idea
had
of
yesterday,
accepting it, there's no accepting.
For
like
the
you just go through and your dashboard and link your account.
The breadth of this market is widening out. You can look at the SML, you can look at the 400, you can look at the 600, you can even look at the Russell 2000. That's up 1.92% right now, way outpacing the S&P 500 and the Dow. I think this is constructive. And Brian, if you look at this breaking news and you sort
but
of
he's
put it
not
all
a
into
300K
context,
account.
I mean,
there.
it is very clear that the U.S. innovates.
And he was
China
down.
replicates and Europe regulates. That is the world we live in, and that is not changing.
Wait, some are 300.
No matter what happens with Greenland or anything
Were they
else
200K
at this
accounts?
point in time.
26
so,
trades.
Again, Trump is.
I don't know the starting value, but that
again, people
is
don't really
lots
like
of
his
gains.
tactics in terms of negotiating, but he seems to be getting things done, and he seems to be perhaps going to leave the world in a better place than it had been when he took over.
We've had some people insisting that Europe is now deregulating, which I know hard to believe, but they argue that some banking and some other sectors, this is what's been driving those moves. But does this, Craig, now eliminate this overhang? Remember, we're only really back to where we were going into this a couple of days ago. So for the market's original start to the year, do we go back to that pattern? Like you said, Russell's leading the way. We're back to talking about the memory stocks. Intel's up 50 or 60% since Jan 1. Do those trades come back on the table? We're talking about strong GDP growth. We're talking about a surprisingly good labor market, perhaps, things like that. So what do you do now? Do you scramble to go back to that framework?
Yeah, I think the economy seems to be doing fine. Again, I'll defer to Nancy here at Piper on that one, but that seems to be doing well. And at this point in time, small mid-cap stocks are where the rotation is going. So I think you're going to continue to see that innovation. People are going to come back to those names. I think they'll be buying those names up again. And then if you go through the list of stocks where Trump has talked about here, even with the Davos conversation, sounds like we're going to see more nuclear come into fruition. We're going to see more industrial companies doing well. You'll see perhaps some of the truckers. All these stocks are all turning up and acting a lot more constructive.
The small cap. I know we got it. We keep getting got to go. Craig Johnson. I guess that means we got to go.
Thank you, Brian.
The voice. It's either the producers or the voice in my head, or they may be the same. I don't know. But I will say the SML up 2.7%. Small caps ripping.
Wow.
And again, could be a lot of reasons for that. This kind of leveling off of the NASDAQ and the triple Qs has really been going on for a couple of months now.
Now the next, this is such an obvious play, folks. It's so insanely obvious. 6925
now.
Like it's so. Look at vol is dying. It's done. It's over.
Amidst these news cross currents, Rick Santelli is here next with that.
Rick Santelli? Yeah. It's over. Trade war is over. Trade war is over. It's over. And now this should make the next interview that much more exciting because now it puts a whole new spin on it of obviously the new questions are going to be. So what's it like? Like this is actually going to make the interview like that much better. It really is. What do we have? Trade way. This is why you should fact check what you're saying. Dude, we got another runaway train, folks. We got another runaway train. Throwing that stop to break even. We've already realized 2.2 and it's running. It's up to 3.5. I'm just trading on this one because literally this is the only account worthwhile for me to trade. FFN, I've already passed the test. I just need a scalp trade. The black account, I already hit the consistency rule. These other ones, the smaller Apex PAs, I'm at my consistency rule. The bigger ones, I guess I theoretically could have kept trading there, but I already locked in 5K on each one, so why risk it? 75K a day. Take profit, I already passed the test. I'm only trading on one account right now because it's the only account I can trade on. Like it literally, I've either passed the test or I've hit the consistency rules. This is the only one, and this is why I'm just finding out now. This is my second or third day trading Lucid. There's no consistency rule here. This is my first funded Lucid account ever. So the only reason I'm trading this one is literally because there is no rule for it. So that's the only one to trade. Trust me, folks, if I had more room to run on these other ones, I would be letting it run. This is such an evident setup type of a play. It's so incredibly evident. Solid risk reward. I already took all my risk off the table. Stops at break even after already locking in 2K. It's just running. It's now just a runner. So as to why am I only trading one? Because I literally, there's no point in trading the others. I've either already maxed out consistency or I've already hit the profit target that I'm allowed to hit. Whoa!
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, the markets are ripping higher right now. The Dow's up 1.5%. Small caps up 2.7%. NASDAQ up 1.4%. You can see big moves there. What happened? Well, moments ago, the president putting out on True Social, his social media platform,
right there, 6,900.
That he has reached what they would call the framework of a deal. So no deal, but the framework of a deal with NATO around Greenland.
They're not talking about how they have to have sex, though, to confirm it.
Kyle Bass is back with us. Kyle, we appreciate you being flexible enough to jump back on with us. We led the show with you. Now you're back. Framework of a deal around NATO. I know you're going to speculate. Why we don't know much. What would you imagine any kind of a deal might look like?
I mean, it's very important for us to install what we need to install and work with Greenland to make sure that Arctic pathway is something that we have sufficiently covered for both submarine warfare, shipping lanes, and ballistic missiles and hypersonics coming over the top. So we're going to work closely hand in hand. It sounded to me like when you listen to Stephen Miller, you listen to Trump very carefully, says we're investing hundreds of billions of dollars in Europe's defense. And we're doing that, for the betterment of the West.
681 is my target.
And so I think we're going to end up owning the territory of Greenland, is what I believe.
Order submitted.
The whole thing.
Again, maps are they make Greenland look a lot larger than it is.
I know, I seem crazy. Calling it out now. 680. That's my target. Riding it from 480.
About that is a different issue. Do you think there could, though, be like a 1951 solution where effectively we agree. Denmark, Greenland says, do kind of not whatever you want, but put military bases here, protect us. There'll be a trade. That there is some kind of an outcome
Vols
that
getting
is
crushed.
Not
Folks,
purchasing
welcome to the world of Havana rally.
Country of Greenland, but
welcome
a negotiated settlement that would give the United States the protection, the missile protection, the control of the Arctic sea routes, which I believe, as I've said to you, Kyle, on and offline, I really believe that this is what this is about. You can argue about rare earths all you want. I think it's about the opening up of Arctic shipping lanes and the fear that Russia and China are going to dominate that, a la
Dude, the amount of people who signed up for the Discord,
Correct.
You guys are the
and
fucking
just remember,
best. Honestly, I know it's free, so it's not like the biggest lift ever. But just the support that we get from the community day in and day out, you guys like legitimately are the fucking best. I'm seeing a giant list of people who are in
Denmark about buying Greenland.
So fucking cool.
Yeah,
you guys.
I mean, we have.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. You guys are the tits.
Principally because
it's not free. The first month is free, and then from there, I think my education will prove it. Where you're actually net ahead being in there. Goonie code doesn't work. Well, maybe you should learn how to read. Goonie is not the code. It is code Davos because it's good for today and only today. Look at the what's pinned to the top of chat. Davos, D-A-V-O-S.
Russia and the Cold War. Which is why we actually formed.
It doesn't work.
MIT's
it does work.
Lincoln Labs.
You have
Lincoln
to
Labs
read.
Was put together as a specialty
it's an
national
exercise
lab
of
in the United
reading,
States
team.
to set in force our early warning system for a potential Russian attack. This is
I'm
just
calling
the
it
next
out now.
iteration of
680,
that, with China
folks.
now being the number one
calling
threat
it
to the
out
United
now.
States. And I think that we are, as you can tell, the level of rhetoric is at a zenith right now, and at some point in time, we're going to get something done. And it's by necessity, Brian. This isn't just President Trump, getting to an issue and standing on it.
All right, Trump should be speaking at 3
here and now.
Watch this for me. I need to pee really quick. Don't do anything crazy.
And when that happens, it sets so many different dominoes into motion here that we better have our ducks in a row before that happens.
Yeah, it's really been quite the whirlwind. I don't think we talked about Greenland ever in the last, say, 25 years, and now all of a sudden it's top of everybody's mind and maybe top of their globes as well. Kyle Bass, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
We're also watching bond yields after the president's announcement and even going into, not a ton of movement to be sure. We're still around 425. If anyone can give us the significance of that, it's Rick Santelli, who joins us now with the bond report. Rick?
Yes, Kelly, it's a twofer today, and you'll understand why in a moment. Remember, yesterday's moves in large part were all about Japanese yields, but to think that the effects of the tariffs in Europe
I come back and
how
Rick's
they moved
live?
the equity markets didn't spill over into foreign exchange
It's
or
going to be a good
the fixed
day,
income
dude.
sovereign
It's
market.
going to
Well,
be
of
a
course
good
it did.
day.
But I think it was more like 3 portions Japan, maybe 1 portion of Greenland. And today the markets will agree with that. Let's look at a 2-year. The least affected by any of this. This starts last Friday. Virtually, it's a sideways market.
Dude.
As a matter of fact, yields ticked up just
A nice
little
little
bit, which I'm sure didn't really
18%
have anything to
return
do with
on an
Trump.
option
It's just
selling
not
account
part
right
of the
there,
game right now.
9.5K
It's focused
pop.
on the Fed and very little from
Not
the
a
Fed
bad
exchange.
day.
Now, let's look at
Not
Japanese
a
10
bad
years since
day.
Friday, along with our 10
I'm calling it out.
Look at that. It is on top of each other. That's why the market moved. But we do
Order
see
filled.
yields coming down a little extra helping right
Order
now
submitted.
in the mid to long maturities, not the short end like the 2-year. So that really is about what's going on in equities. That's the feedback loop. When the Dow pops 300 points, usually the bond market takes notice.
Order
now
submitted.
let's take that 10-year out and put the dollar index in there. And this is really fascinating because it's indirectly correlated, which makes perfect sense. When the orange line was going up and yields in Japan were going up, the value of the dollar was going down and vice versa. Why? It's the same reason about gold. We can get political about all this, but in the end, it's about central banks.
Get
Central banks
political,
cannot
Rick.
be the champions of the universe. They cannot have all this debt. They can't play games with this debt without markets taking notice. And that's why Japan and the Bank of Japan are such a driving force in the marketplace.
48.25.
And finally,
I'm off by 1
all
point.
of that
49.25.
comes back to the
And I
Chinese.
hit
They're part of the Greenland
48.25.
discussion, but yet, with all the talk, with everything going on, with their AI progress, let's look at this chart starting in May of 2023, the dollar versus the onshore yuan. And we're still within a nip of the lowest level on the yuan, highest level on the dollar in 32 months. Brian, back to you.
All right, Rick Santelli, really appreciate it, Rick. Thank you very much. All right, folks, do not
SPX
go
getting
anywhere.
smacked at 900. We are waiting for Trump to talk. He was supposed to be at 1, then punted to 2. Now it's punted to 3. We are just waiting.
Around Greenland
waiting.
We don't have any more details than that. We don't know what the deal
I've locked in 2K. That's kind of my goal. The rest of it's a freebie, which is why my stop's at break even.
But the markets,
my goal,
they're not
that's a great
around.
goal for a 50K account, in my opinion.
Dow, SP, NASDAQ, all higher.
So, obviously, I don't want it to get knocked out, but even if it does, it's break even, and I've already made 2K. So, obviously, the more money, the more fun it is, clearly. But I'm very happy with this realize. Honestly, I'm so happy with everything that's been playing out today. I might use that as my stop. We'll move this up a little bit. No matter what, right here, I'm guaranteeing myself 2,000. Technically, my stop's in the money, so actually more than that. And then if it runs, it runs. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it runs, it runs. Oh, what a day, dude. What a day it has been, team. What an absolute monster of a day. How to accept the terms for Discord? There should be a checkbox right there. And then the emoji. Are you talking in the welcome message? After reading, understanding, and accepting the information posted below, click the emoji below to gain access. There is a thumbs up, if that's what you're talking about. And of course, if you have any problems, right here, contact goonietrading.com/contact. Right there, top right, home, pricing, FAQs, contact, full name, email, questions. It'll go directly to me. I will personally be responding to you. Is Trump going to talk today? Yeah, he should be. He should be. Have runners in TPT, biggest day ever. Well, if you want to do more futures trading with more people who love it as much as you do, that's what the Discord is for, brother. And obviously, a huge congrats. A huge congrats. All right, we're at 600. Wow, Trump. He tacoed again. Taco, 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 taco. Taco, taco, taco. Shout out to Christopher, KO'd, Kevin, Jamal, Charles, Kareem, Tarek, Manny, Ahmed, Anthony, Kenneth, Rue, Scott, Brian, Luke. Who else do we have here? Philip, Theodore, and many more. You guys all took advantage of the Davos freebie code today. I obviously just want to give you a personal thanks. So if you're still listening to me right now, thank you. Whoa.
Lot going on. Love Live TV. We are live, by the way.
We are live.
Speaking right now to President Trump. When that interview wraps, you will hear it right away here on CNBC. And Joe Kernan, this Kelly is perfect time to sit down with President Trump.
This is going to be the most interesting interview of the day because the deal just happened.
With NATO around Greenland,
the tariff just got killed.
With him.
Yes. And the question is, if you're in the markets, not for those who are trading this minute by minute, do you lean into the framework of a deal, or is he going to come out with some comments that, kind of dial that back a little?
How would you define framework of a deal with NATO?
Wanted to get back to everything in the Goonie Discord has done. Today alone made 1.7 thousand cheers. Dude. Yes, boy, slick. Massive congrats. 1.7K.
With the threat, I'm
2 stacks, brother. Massive congrats. Who else made money today? Post it in chat. How much are you guys up? Post those gains. Post those Goonie gains.
Last year. Set up the rally that continued for the rest of the year until today, until the last couple of days.
How do I change my email address? I didn't use. No. It doesn't matter your address there. GS. All you have to do is log in. That's your login to Goonie Trading, and then from there you just have to connect the right Discord.
and some of that being
Once
the
again,
reason
if you
for
have
the
issues, reach out to
decline
me.
yesterday
Contact right
was
there.
not
I will
really
personally
Greenland.
help you.
And I think that Greenland, while
5K,
important
4K,
politically to the people
2.1,
of
4K,
Greenland certainly care
300%,
about what happens to them,
4K,
the markets,
1,000,
my guess,
13,000
reacting,
on
number one, they like
IWM calls.
nicey nice. That's a good
5K,
thing. Number two,
pass my
technical term too,
eval,
by the way.
3.1K.
Number two, they like the fact that tariffs are likely
600
off
playing
the
it,
table.
dude. Money's money,
that's the
folks.
piece of it that I think matters the most. You know, you can actually look at this tick by tick from Sunday night, or Monday night rather, at least, where you were going to look at a 1% decline off the threats of tariffs on Europe, and then once the Japanese bond market started to act up, you added another 1.5% decline, and then you ended up down 2 yesterday.
The Japanese
so you're
bond
getting back
market.
Most of it. We're not back to Friday's close.
Lot of
on the
World War
S&P
II talk
500,
going on today.
But I do think that in general, the market was
Only made
always
400? Dude,
keeping
not
in
only.
sight
400 is
the possibility
400.
that this would not necessarily be a very open-ended crisis or threat or re-escalation of trade tensions. I do think that these issues struck a market that was unusually certain about the fact that 2026 was going to be a super clean policy year, and we're going to grow, and it's going to be tariffs were last year's problem. So anything that interrupted that was going to get a reaction. So I think now the job is for the market to prove that this wasn't it, that this was or wasn't in fact the thing that mattered most, or was or wasn't the thing that it really was contending with. Because last week, before any of this, the S&P tried 5 times to get to 7,000, couldn't get there. The mega caps have been under pressure. That's where the relief has come since that post by the president. The relief has come in the mega caps that were really under a lot of selling pressure. And so I do think this is the reflex move. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm all for the analogies with last April. Last April, we had a flash crash.
Dude, 6,900 is going to go. Remember, upside gap fill is what we're watching next. If we hold 6,900, 6,925, expect the Vanna rally to continue.
The rotational market, the
this is the start of just another higher low push to a new all-time high. We've seen this before. I promised you. Like I called it out this entire time of the dip to be bought.
That's what we're seeing, and it's just this massive kind of pent-up potential catch-up move.
While we're waiting for Trump to get going, where is it? Where is my coffee thoughts? Every single morning in the Discord, I give a breakdown of what I'm looking for on the day right here. Thick thoughts. I'm stuck in neutral until I see how the market reacts to Trump's remarks. I'm looking to buy the dip, just unsure of the timing at this moment. Godspeed. And I gave even the call out levels. Bull case 790, 800, 825, 850, 6,900 reach. That was posted at 7:45 this morning. And just to give you an idea of what I do every single day, I give out the option structure, the major plays, where we see all the big money. It's basically just tracking big money. We look at the NYSE, the Mag 7. This happens every single trading day, my own plan, and exactly what I said at 8:17 this morning. So not only did I call it out, no hindsight and bias, look at the timestamp right there, 8:17, but just to kind of put that into fruition, there's the money from it. So none of this Monday morning quarterbacking like so many people want to do. You are not eligible. Craig, is it because you already have a different one? Consider me Miles Davis. We'll look at after stream. All right, I will help you out. Folks, I know that it's a rush. There's a lot of signups. Like I said, if you have any issue, I will personally help you. Just give me today, give me tomorrow. We will definitely have you figured out fully by this weekend. The first month is free anyway. If you have any issues, contact right there. Contact. Full name, email, questions. If you want to sign up to get in for free, the code is Davos, DAVOS. Here's the website, code Davos.
Steve Leisman, great stuff. Really appreciate that, folks. Much more on Closing Bell.
Busy day here. We'll see you tomorrow.
Welcome to Closing Bell. I'm Scott Wapner, live from Post 9 here at the New York Stock Exchange, and we begin this final stretch with breaking news.
When is
Stocks
this happening?
After President Trump says he has reached the framework
We're
to a
waiting.
deal with NATO over Greenland and will no longer impose tariffs.
Do you still
on
do anything
Europe
with
that
True
were set
Trading
to
Group
go into
anymore? I
effect
do not. I
on
do my own
February
thing.
1st. The president also saying earlier today,
Can I sign up
during
by
his
midnight?
speech in
Yes.
Davos, that he would not use force in Greenland.
Technically
Stocks were up on that
11:59.
as well. And we will hear from the president himself momentarily from his interview with CNBC's Joe Kernan. First, let's go to Washington and Eamon Javers for the very latest. Eamon, it would appear once again the art of the threat is especially powerful.
Yep, and in this case, the art of backing off the threat, Scott. What we're seeing from the president's Truth Social post is a further de-escalatory signal. And I want to call your attention to 2 words in the president's post. He says, "We have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland." I would just circle the words framework and future there and say there's some questions that we now need the answers to in terms of exactly what is this deal with respect to Greenland. Does it imply some sort of U.S. ownership, some sort of U.S. Occupation or participation in the governance of Greenland? What exactly is that? And our Joe Kernan will have the chance to ask the president for any specifics on that. But also importantly for markets, Scott, as you know, and you
Take the
just
money.
said,
I
the president
forgot.
says, "I will not be
Yeah, I have
imposing the tariffs
stops
that
in.
were
I'm not
scheduled to go into
crazy.
effect
I put
on
stops in.
February 1st."
You
So
scared
that
me for a
relief
second.
to
I was like, I
financial
thought I
markets
had
watching this tariff
like,
escalation between
levels.
the United States
I was like,
and NATO
dude,
countries.
you're freaking me out,
There's no
man.
doubt about that. The interview, as you said,
This is just play money.
moments
I've
away
already
between
locked
Joe
in
Kernan and
2K.
the president. You'll see
Like,
it. Eamon, we'll talk
this
to you
is
on the
just
other
like
side
for
of that
fucks.
for more of your reactions, but the market's reaction is clear. And we are rallying, not quite getting everything back from yesterday's sell-off, but nonetheless, as we begin this final stretch today, we do have a pretty sizable move on Wall Street. Let's talk more about that with our panel today.
Referring to your new video. Did you watch the whole thing for my reasoning? I do appreciate your insight,
also
truly.
with us, 314's Warren Pies. It's good to have everybody with us. Dan, I'll begin with you first. Ignore the noise. This screams that more than anything else. We're kind of used to this.
I was all prepared to come on today, excuse me, and say, what are you talking about? We're not invading Greenland anytime soon. This is a negotiating tactic, a la everything that we've seen over the last year. And then, of course,
we're on a little bit of the struggle bus here at 6,900. Key level, next one is 25.
It's just, I think
if we can hold this and get that power hour pump, this is the first evident target.
Attention or ignore the volatility. It's just that the market has not learned its lesson in terms of pricing in worst case outcomes when those are unlikely to come to pass.
Are we back, Stephanie Link, in some respects to where we started this year as, with a pretty good runway for the stock market, this volatility and this news and the threat and the fear notwithstanding?
Dude,
yes,
when are we starting this interview? Come on. It was supposed to be at 1 p.m. It's 3.
In the markets, and we're coming off of 3 amazing past
like
years.
This guy thinks he's
of
important
18 to
or something.
24% in the S&P 500. High expectations, of course. But at the end of the day, each time we've had a scare on geopolitics or tariffs, it's been a buying opportunity. And the reason is because the economy is doing really well, better than what most people have been expecting at 5% GDP. We have $1 trillion of fiscal, monetary, and deregulation yet to come into this economy. The Fed's balance sheet is expanding. We had 3 cuts from the Fed. That's a lagging situation, so we should see a little bit of support there. Maybe we get 1 more or 2 more, who knows? And then the most important thing in my mind is productivity. It is skyrocketing, up 4.9% last quarter. At the same time, unit labor costs fell 1.9%. That's a recipe for kind of Goldilocks, if you will. Earnings are set to go higher. They already have been pretty good so far, and I expect more to come.
Warren, we're back because the backdrop's favorable. That remains the bottom line, which people yesterday in the midst of the sell-off were trying to focus on. And that Tony Pasquarello of Goldman Sachs is keenly aware of, as he says today, quote, U.S. equities should be supported by a macro outlook that's inherently favorable. Yet risk-reward remains tricky until we see better levels. In the doing, I suspect the tactics of navigation this year will favor the buying of dips, as distinct from the chasing of rips. This remains a buy-the-dip market, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's our position.
Fully agree.
Everything Stephanie said and laid out is exactly in line with what we're seeing. I mean, Q4 earnings, we've been pointing this out, seasonally accelerated from the end of Q3.
Agree.
And so that's
Lucid is fire. I actually really do like the Lucid Flex. I think I like the Lucid Flex more than I like Lucid Black. If you don't know what Lucid is, those are the new accounts I'm trading on here, the ones that start with an L. I have 2 of them
in oil.
right there. Lucid Black, Lucid Flex. This is like my first real attempt at them, so I might change it. But I like that the Lucid Flex has no consistency, and I could just let it run.
say
So
is
as a
when you
trend
look
following
at
trader,
the last
love
Liberation
it.
Day bout of this type of drama,
Lucid Flex
these
accounts
not
are the
totally
best right now.
risk-free moves that the
I'm
president
liking
does.
it for
If you look
sure.
at the yield curve
If you want to
coming
try it
off
out,
of the last
remember
Liberation
40%
Day,
off the
it
best
did
deal
level
with
shift
code
up.
Goonie.
It went from like 30 basis
For
points
whoever
Tuesday
uses those
to
codes,
60,
thank you so much.
65.
The support is
And what that tells
phenomenal.
you is that
For
you
everyone
start
signing up for the
inserting
free
in drips
Discord,
an
thank you. The
erosion
support is
of,
phenomenal.
Of confidence in the U.S. asset base. And so that's a higher term premium. I don't think it's a problem, but we come out of this, yeah, equities are back to basically where they're at, but the 10-year is now at 4.25. We started this somewhere around 4.15. So it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, Dan, Warren makes good points. There are still unknowns. There are still risks. A framework isn't a deal. But nonetheless, you try and focus on what got you here in the first place and why so many other parts of this market had started to move higher as the year had started. The Russell, as we were just talking about in the prior hour, among those averages and the places in this market that had really started to do well.
Yeah, mid-caps as well. I don't think people realize that since the end of the third quarter of last year, mid-caps and the the S&P is trailing any number of ETFs, with not the Qs per se, but the RSP and the MDY, which is mid-caps, the IWM as well. So you've had a broadening out, but I agree with a lot of what Warren had to say. One thing I want to just focus in on is the oil price, which obviously has come down for multiple years now. I don't think people, generally speaking, pay enough attention to how much oil matters for broader inflation. Obviously, you've got the labor market and housing, et cetera, but with oil prices continuously moving lower, it's an enormously powerful downward press on inflation throughout the economy. Yes,
Long-time Discord member, thanks for being a real one in the middle of a bunch of crazies. Much love. Shout out.
But
That's so
largely
nice.
speaking, WTI in the 50s, if you will, is pretty accommodative.
Do your Discord
for
members
inflation.
do as well as you trading? Not being rude, but just wondering. Some do better, some do worse, some do as well. We have some people who really focus on futures, others who really focus on options. It's a pretty dispersed
belief in many corners of this market that the worst of scenarios would take place in the first place. And that all of investor focus should be on the fact that we just started earnings season and it's expected to be pretty good. And we're going to be focused on a Federal Reserve that's going to be cutting interest rates. And the economy is going to end up growing a lot faster than people thought.
All right, I closed out of everything. We are looking good on the day. My best gain, 5K on 15 accounts. So let's do the running total. 5 times 15, that is 75. 3. We'll call that 3K. We're just kind of giving a bit of money. So 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, plus another 12. And then we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus another 8K. $95,000. $95,000. Is it going to piss me off that I didn't have a 100K day? Yeah. It might be closer to 96, 97. I was just doing a little bit of rounding. But all done, 0 DTE in front of you guys. You saw the trades, you heard the entries, you heard the exits, or you straight up saw them. We explained them. 90 realized, yes, right there. Realized P&L. Not unrealized. I'm completely flat. There's no more orders, cancel oral orders. There's no more positions. None of that. All realized. We almost had that 6-figure day. Almost. But more importantly, did it in front of your faces. I think that's the key point rather than some of these people who try to hide shit, which I think is some of the most devious fucking bullshit. But there you go. I am flat, and now we are waiting for Trump.
Still go up
just waiting, moments away.
You and I have talked about this on air for years now. Yes, the market's expensive, but relative to its own history, but it was expensive when it was trading at 17 and 18 times, and people told me that the market multiple was too high. And it was expensive when it was 20 and 21 times, and people told me the multiple was too high. At the end of the day, in a bull market in general, but specifically one that's powered by the type of tailwind that AI is providing right now throughout the market, industrials, financials, utilities, tech, obviously, multiples don't matter in the short term. And I know someone somewhere is going to clip that and say, Greenhouse said multiples don't matter. They do matter for long-term returns. But in the short term, they have very little determinant, if any determinant, on forward performance. And again, you need to only go back 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years to see that when the market's been expensive, forward returns, now
I'm just
realized
posting
returns
some stuff
have been quite
into
attractive.
the Discord
Warren, do you have
right
a
now.
thought on that? And let me just also say we're moments away here from this
Moments
interview
away.
with President Trump and our own Joe Kernan. So I may have to interrupt you at any moment to go to that. But you want to entertain that question?
Sure. Yeah. I actually, our call is that multiples will expand modestly this year. And that's just because when you look back through history, we have right now set in, according to analyst estimates, and I think that they're going to be roughly correct, we have 90 basis points of margin expansion for the S&P 500, and the Fed is going to cut 2 to 3 times this year. Go back in history and find me a year where multiples contracted under those conditions. You just can't do it. So I do think that the nature of this market has changed, and that's pushed valuations higher. Margins continue to go higher. The quality of this market is much better than it has been. If you look at ROIC, return on invested capital, through across the cross-section of companies.
Okay.
Think it all
Warren,
exactly what Dan's saying.
Are we
gonna
finally
interrupt you
going?
now because CNBC's Joe Kernan, as I said,
Finally.
just wrapping up his interview with President Trump. Let's listen.
Mr. President, it's great to see you. Thanks for the time.
Nice seeing you.
I threw away all my questions. One question I had, we did this 5 years ago. I don't think you reflect too much because you're looking forward, but can you believe what's happened in the world and what's happened to you over the past 5 years? I just can't help but think that it's been just something to reflect. It's incredible, the 5 years.
Thank you very much. It's been a great ride. We've had a lot of fun, and nothing's easy in life, but you keep at it. We have a tremendous economy going right now, and we have a country that's the hottest country anywhere in the world. And this took place over 1 year. We just celebrated the first year, as you know.
Here's how I was going to start. I was going to say it's very compelling in terms of talking about what you've done in the first year domestically, but also very compelling in the case you made about Greenland. So I was going to ask you, did you see any of your European cohorts nodding? But I guess I don't have to ask that now because of the news that it breaks very quickly. Can you go into what you just talked about with the NATO meeting?
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland. And it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The market, 600 points, getting back a lot of some of the nervousness we had in the last couple of days. The tariffs are off. Nothing happens on February 1st.
No, we took that off because it looks like we have pretty much a concept of a deal.
A deal of ownership, a deal?
Well, it's a little bit complex, but we'll explain it down the line. But the Secretary General of NATO and I and some other people were talking, and it's the kind of a deal that I wanted to be able to make.
Where does Denmark, did they weigh in on what they want, what they would agree to?
Well, I assume they did because he very much represents, he's a strong leader. Mark, you know Mark Rutte. And he, I assume he's been speaking to them. He's been speaking to all of them.
Are mineral rights involved? Is ownership involved? Did the Golden Dome sway people?
I don't want to say yet, but
the Golden Dome was very compelling today when you talked about that.
Yeah, the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in the Golden Dome, and they're going to be involved in mineral rights, and so are we.
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's
forever.
Forever. For Greenland at this point.
Yeah. Forever.
That's staggering.
That's better than a 99-year.
This is what, 2 hours after.
It's better than the Obama deal with the famous Iran nuclear deal with a 9-year deal. No, this is forever. This is a long term.
I mentioned that you could have come over here and just talked about what you wanted to. Before you left, I think you wanted to talk about where the progress that you've made in terms domestically with the economy and everything else in the United States. And you didn't have to talk, I didn't think you had to talk about Greenland, but you're always moving on to the next thing.
In the speech I gave, I talked a lot about Greenland because we need it for security, and now we're going to have even better security, I think, than I would have had before.
And I know how you operate. I know that you didn't take force off of the table.
Is the pausing
but all
a bit
along,
weird?
I think if there was going to be a war, it was going to be a trade war. Is that fair to say?
I think so, yeah. I don't see us fighting with Denmark,
NATO.
fighting with
you've done so much
NATO.
to try to strengthen NATO. I'm sure you don't want to see the dissolution of something you work.
I'm proud of NATO from the standpoint. Look, I brought them up from 2% to 5% of GDP. They're paying a lot of money. They pay us a lot of money because they buy missiles and they buy a lot of things. Unfortunately, Obama gave them $350 billion for Ukraine, which was just terrible. I mean, the whole thing was terrible. It should have never happened. That's a war that should have never happened. But they paid a lot of money, and I don't know if you know, but I signed a rare earth deal with Ukraine to probably get most of that back, maybe more back than we haven't. But what they did, they were just giving out money like cookies to a child.
I know how much you've done today, so I'm going to bounce from thing to thing. When we talked about geopolitical concerns today, we also mentioned Iran, and I made the point that I never thought that Greenland, that geopolitical events would include an actual shooting war. Iran's a different case. It could be tariffs, which you've already announced for Iran. Could be further action than what we've already seen in Iran. Most people think that you probably prevented the loss of I don't know how many lives for some of the protesters.
Thousands, more than that.
Was that the end of the story, though?
Well, they had one thing specifically that really got me. They were going to hang the old-fashioned hanging. They were going to hang 837 people on Thursday. And I told them, you can't do that. If you do that, it's going to be bad. I don't want to go exactly what I said, but nasty. And they canceled it, hopefully permanently.
But those tariffs are still on, including China. Has China responded to
sanctions?
25% for anyone who does business with Iran, and that will go forward.
Yeah, that's going forward.
That will go forward. There are assets moving into the Gulf, obviously carriers and other things. So a lot of people are wondering whether that's a prelude to further action.
Well, we hope there's not going to be further action, but they're shooting people indiscriminately in the streets. And they were going to look. This was a big thing for me. They were going to hang 837, mostly young people.
When you did successfully hit Fordo, you got a lot of grief from the Democrats for doing it. Now, the grief is, oh, you promised to do something in Iran. Now they want you to do, or they're at least finger pointing. Say you said you were going to help the protesters, and now you're not. So you can't win.
Well, we had, of course, again. I mean, if I came up with the cure to cancer, they'd say, why didn't you do it faster?
If you walked on water, you can't swim.
Yeah, they're sick people. They really are. They are. We call it Trump derangement syndrome.
Should we stay tuned in Iran? I guess that's my question.
I guess. I mean, look, it's a rough place. It's a place that we hit very hard with the nuclear. Ending the nuclear. They would have had a nuclear weapon long ago. It's actually already they would have had a nuclear weapon probably a month after we hit, had we not hit. And we hit them hard, the B-2 bombers. We just ordered 25 additional B-2 bombers. They were unbelievable. Those things they were totally undetectable. They were undetected. And think of it, with no moon, in the dark of night, late in the evening, every single one of those bombs, and they're giants, every single one of those bombs hit its targets and just obliterated
the code apply
the
for
place.
just this month or after
we're going to find out where they are
the
now
first
about
free month?
what they're going to do with
it
nuclear.
is viable for today,
the
and it
thing
gives
I've
you
been
one
strong
free
on,
month
they
starting
can't do the
today.
nuclear.
Is
Now,
the
this
slide?
attack
Yes.
that we did at the time.
So you'll get
which
the
is
next
now
30 days for free if you sign up
older
today.
than what happened in Venezuela recently, which was equally as good. But
To be
the
honest,
attack in
I think enough
Iran,
people are going to mess it up. I'll probably end
if
up
they do
extending it to
it's
this
gonna happen
weekend,
again.
so
They've
you
gotta
don't need to
stop with the
panic and be like,
nuclear.
dude, I'm not online.
They keep experimenting with nuclear, and at some point they're going to get the idea that they can't do that. They're just not going to be able to do that. Can't let them have it.
Something else that we might find out in the near future is the replacement for Jay Powell.
It's true.
I just saw the Mr. Hassett, who I have a pretty good relationship with. And you're right.
He's fantastic.
Kevin
I
Hassett
like
is the
keeping him
director
where he
of
is,
the
one other
National
truth. I don't
Economic
wanna lose him.
Council.
He's so good on television.
On CNBC would be a great time to give us
he's
more.
so good on
Are we down to 2 now? Are we down to? I heard Rick Reeder had a strong.
I'd say we're down to 3, but we're down to 2, and I probably can tell you we're down to maybe 1 in my mind. But
Did
I will
Rick
say
Reeder
this
impress you in recent?
Very impressive. Yeah, he's been there for
because for a while the betting markets had Borscht in the lead.
Well, Rick is very good. They're all good. All three are good. All three would be, I think, good. We have a problem with the man that's there now. He's too late. He's always too late, except when it comes to politics for the other side, where he was actually too early.
Another one, a person I know you have a great deal of admiration for is your Treasury Secretary.
Yeah.
He made the point that.
By the way, he only wants to stay where he is. That's one thing.
Right.
He's fantastic, but.
The Scent is actually legitimately good. He'll go down as one of the better Treasury Secretaries outside of the world of politics.
But Scott
very smart guy.
The point that if you have productivity gains, whether it's from AI or whether it's from Big Beautiful Bill, whatever it is, that you need a Fed chairman that can't get too agitated about a hot GDP number. In other words, we might be at a point where we could run nominal GDP of 8%, or after inflation of 5.5%. But that doesn't mean that it's inflationary and that you need to raise rates. So, have you considered someone that could be like a Greenspan in the 90s?
Well, that's what I want. I mean, right now, if you
are we day drinking? Not at all. This is the most widely held opinion of Treasury secretaries that he's one of the better ones.
From having any great runs, and we want to have a great run. So we're going to be at 5.5 or something. They're predicting. I don't know. It's much higher than they thought. But let's say we're at 5.5. We could be at 10, or we could be at 12. We could be at 15. But immediately when they announce good numbers, now in the old days, you're too young. In the
bag
old
holder
days,
trading. That's one of the nicest things I've heard all day. Jesus.
You look good. Whatever you're doing, keep.
It's going to make me blush.
Look, Joe, in the old days, when you had a good run, you'd announce good numbers and the stock market would go up. Now the stock market crashes every time you have good numbers because they think everyone's going to raise rates. And growth is not a big cause of inflation. In fact, it can go the other way. So look, we've had tremendous growth and we have almost no inflation. For the last 3 months, we have 1.2% inflation, and yet we've had tremendous growth.
Do you, at this point, have plans for what you would do? And you said you won't fire Jay Powell. Let's say he decides, I'm not going to be pushed around. I don't like the way I was treated. Whatever he decides. And what if he decides to stay on the Fed? He doesn't need to leave when he's no longer chairman.
We'll see how it all works out. I mean,
that could create a block of 4 people that still vote.
We'll have to. We just, in this world, we live with the cards you dealt. And if that happens, his life won't be very, very happy, I don't think, by doing it. I think he wants to get out. He has not done a good job. He's done a horrible job on buildings. He took a small little complex, the Federal Reserve complex. I could have redone it. I could have fixed it for $25 million. It would have looked beautiful. I think he's up to almost $4 billion.
Yeah.
The most expensive project ever built per square foot. And he's either incompetent or he's crooked, I guess, right? But so we'll find out. So if he stays, he stays. If he doesn't stay, he doesn't stay.
Do you know what would satisfy?
Think of it. He took this job.
Yeah.
And they're up to almost $4 billion for a little building. I'm building this massive ballroom. I'm way under budget. It's going to cost less than $400 million. It's going to cost maybe $300 million for this massive project. I just built, relatively recently, I built a hotel, the Waldorf in Washington, and I spent like $250 million. It's a much bigger complex than the Federal Reserve and much more complex. So I said, how did they spend $3 to $4 billion on this little thing? I could have done it for $25 million, and it would have been nicer than what they're doing.
Does Tom Tillis, and I know that he's not going to be a senator much longer, but he probably could prevent someone from being voted on while this subpoena is still an issue. Are there just a couple of, do you know anything about what would be necessary for Chair Powell to answer for, to where this would be withdrawn so we can move forward?
I don't know about Tom Tillis, but he's not going to be a senator too much longer. Yeah.
But you figure whomever you nominate is going to have an easy...
Whatever. I mean, whatever it is, life, whatever.
Whatever happens. because we don't have a lot of time, I was going to needle you a little bit about Senator Elizabeth Warren and a meeting of the minds. That's something that wasn't on my my plate.
Yeah, she was very happy with this phone call. I'll tell you. Now, look,
you won't be having a lot of policy discussions with her, other than.
But credit card companies are getting 28%, 30%. These people don't know they're paying that.
Right. Is it a 1 year?
1 year cap of 10%. And I love it. I know it's sort of like, it sounds like the mayor of New York maybe came up with that, but people are paying, they can't make it. They can't pay 28. You know, whatever happened to usury, they can't pay 28%. And so I said 1 year, I'd like to see a 1 year cap of 10% with the credit card companies. And they'd understand that. I've had calls from credit card companies, people that are friends of mine actually, and I treat them good. I respect them greatly, but they make a lot of money. They got to give people a break. 28% interest. You know, people go out and they buy something, and if they're a little bit late, they're paying 28%. They end up filing for bankruptcy. So I would like to see that happen, yeah.
So there's, I guess, we're getting toward the end, but there's classic conservatism, there's populism, and I guess there's common sense. Is that how you would describe some of the steps that you make? I mean, there are people that call it statism, or that we're getting too involved with managing the private sector.
I'm conservative, but I think I'm common sense. You know, it's like people say, "Are you a conservative?" I say, "Yeah, but I'm a common sense person. I mean, I do things that aren't necessarily that conservative sometimes, and like men and women's sports." Okay, people think it's wonderful. I think it's a horrible thing. I think it's a ridiculous thing. Open borders for everyone so that everybody's prisoners can pour in, where they come in from the Congo, where they come in from all over the world, from Venezuela. And by the way, we picked up 50 million barrels of oil the other day from Venezuela. We're going to sell it at the market price. We're going to give some to Venezuela. We're going to keep some. That's going to be great. You know, we're getting along great with Venezuela. They have tremendous oil and oil reserves and other things, too. And 20 years ago, Venezuela was sort of a pretty hot country. And now it's going to be maybe hot again. By the way, they'll make more money with us than they would have made in 25 years.
All these things.
Sellers at 535
the 10%
there.
on the credit cards, the not allowing corporations to buy single-family homes. It all seems to be.
Well, they were gobbling up all the homes.
It's aimed at affordability, I think, at this point.
It's also aimed at common sense again. But they were buying up all the homes. People couldn't buy homes. You know, you have these big companies, these big corporations buying up thousands of homes and renting them or doing whatever they do with them. Some of them are flipping them for a big profit. But it got to be too much, too many. It became, you know, it's good investment. And we're not saying take them away, but we're saying that we don't want that. We want people to be able to buy a home.
Been a long day for you, I know, and energetic, more energetic than I am right now. Thank you for the time.
You're doing just fine.
Thank you for the time, Mr. President.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, that the President of the United States, of course, and our very own Joe Kernan in Davos. They began
not much
speaking
there,
on the news of the moment, the news that has moved this stock market.
Taco. That is the TLDR of the day. Taco. Market popped, giving a little bit back. Why is it giving it back? Because it ran into this wall at 6,900. But Matt, how would you know that it ran into 6,900? Well, it's a key technical level. It's a key psychological level. It's a key gamma level. No surprise, people decided to take profits there. That is A-OK. That doesn't make it not bullish. This is just a zero DTE influence, a major thing we talk about in the Discord. Literally, go into the Discord right now. It is free if you use the code DAVOS, DAVOS. Will get you your first month free. You can find it pinned to the top of chat in the description. Fact check me. Coffee Thoughts posted at 8:17 this morning. I gave that as the final reach target, 6,900. And that's exactly where we went. Overall, daily chart, I like it. There's still the upside gap fill. That is very much a viable play. Tomorrow, the remainder of this week, and next week, all the way into the FOMC meeting. I like that we protected the 50 EMA. At this point, I wouldn't really be concerned until we start to crack below 6,800 again. That's still my major at level of how am I feeling? How am I not feeling type of a thing. So once again, as long as we're holding this zone, I'm feeling good. And I don't think I would switch legitimately bearish until below 6,700 just to add a little bit of context. If you're just joining in right now, wondering what in the world's happening, why did we have such a day where it popped, pulled back, we had all this weird grindy consolidation, and then it ripped at 225. The answer to that is because the current trade debacle is no more. You could see posted at 2:27 p.m. East Coast time. Right here, something about the Secretary General of NATO and President Trump will, I guess, be sleeping together, consummating maybe their relationship. And then because of that, there's going to be no more tariffs. So we're looking at another folks, how many times does this have to happen? The whole situation from February till now to realize this is the exact playbook. Trump comes in way heavy-handed, hyperbolic, bombastic, market overreacts, says what's going on. And then within a rather short period of time, it all gets kind of figured out, resolved, and then the market continues higher anyway. How many times do we have to see the exact same thing over and over and over again to realize that even though it's not guaranteed in the world of probabilities, the dip should be bought? How many times? We've seen it countless times in the past year right now. And to think that this one unique time, especially when it's not as severe as the April-May stuff, is going to be any different, I just don't see it. We are still in the mode of buy the dip until something underneath structurally changes in the regime of the market, which is exactly what we've been preaching on the live show and the update videos in the Discord. And I know many of you are of the same mindset. I'm not saying that I'm the only person who came up with this. I know many of you. I mean, look at all the gains. Seriously, for one quick second, if you guys could once again post it, how much money you made in chat today, whether on Rumble or YouTube, post how much money you made in chat. And I'm just doing this to illustrate the point that this was an easy play. This was not a big brain thing. This is people who just have been kind of paying attention over the past year. If you've been paying attention over the past year, you know the dip was to be bought, and congratulations, it paid you today. I am not on my own. In fact, I'm more proud of you guys for making a bunch of money today because it's the same thing. We're all instead of just drinking the Kool-Aid of mainstream media and all the bombastic, negative things that we're seeing on social media, good for you for saying, okay, nah, that was just clearly not right. And I know that everyone's telling me negative, gold's ripping, silver's ripping, all-time highs, market's going to crash. That's the only reason they're going up. Congrats to all of you who kind of used your brains and said, nope, media is lying to me. Mainstream media is lying to me. Social media is lying to me. I've seen this pattern before. Basically, I'm saying congratulations on your very legitimate pattern recognition. You recognize the pattern, and congrats to you. You made money. So this is, once again, it's always a good day when legitimate critical thought can actually make you money. So congrats. Seriously, congrats. I do believe that if we're looking at the time frame of the next couple weeks, that this is going to end up marking another higher low, and let's see how high the next big trend is. I'm a little bit hesitant to say the next couple of weeks because next week itself does have a big event, and these events can switch trends. So just want to put this on your radar. Wednesday, January 28th is the next FOMC decision. So today's the 21st, so literally a week away. I think we have a relatively easy week to the upside because we saved ourselves at the 50 MA. The tariffs are done. Nothing is really different at this point. We basically had the same information as when we were at the all-time high, so it stands to reason that we could still continue to revert back to the upside. Upside, high, technical gap fill. I like that. The next thing, at this point, for the next week of our life, I would argue that we're just going to be in that slow grind to the upside as vol continues to die. All those puts get punted. As the puts get punted, the market makers don't have to hedge as much to the downside, so they get out of their shorts, causing vol to drop even more. And you're just going to see this succession of people getting out of their puts. They bought puts for downside protection. Now they're going to sell them, causing a Vanna rally. That Vanna rally, my first major target is obviously obviously the upside gap fill, 6925. And then from there, I'm looking at 50 and 75 based on the current structure, but that's going to update every day. And like I said, I think it's honestly legitimately easy sailing to the upside, not some massive green day. Of course, I would love for that to happen, but my base prediction right now is like kind of more like the action we saw over here. We sold off and just got that grind up. We sold off, got that grind up. We sold off, choppy, and then got the grind up, sold off, grind up. Like, I'm looking literally just to hit the repeat button that we've seen before. I don't think we need to overcomplicate this at all. In fact, I think the one thing that might kind of erroneously seem bullish, but it's actually not going to be, is if we actually gap up above the high. Because remember, as soon as you gap up above the high, you then have to consider the downside gap fills in the next trading session. So for me, what would be perfect is actually no upside gaps, and we continually just open at the high of the previous day and then get another 20, 30, 40 point pump. And then we close out that day. We open up the next day at the high. I don't want to see the upside gaps, because then we have to get downside gap fills before we can really continue this trip to the upside. Of course, you can gap up and keep going. It just makes it a little bit more complicated from like a statistical standpoint. So just want to throw that out there. But right now, you can see as soon as this was announced, the options market went haywire. Some people sold puts, but look at how many longer duration Mag 7s were bought. People went fucking nutty on Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla right there starting at 426. Apple caught a huge pop. Broadcom did not catch a pop. Coin did catch a pop. Microsoft did catch a pop. MicroStrategy caught a little pop, gave it back. Meta caught a nice pop. Netflix actually catching a pop after getting hit from its earnings yesterday. Nvidia did pop, pulled back, and then got crazy with the noise. So people were buying it beforehand. No one really touching Oracle. Palantir, huge pop. Tesla, decent pop after grinding up all day. And then Google also grinding up and then getting another one. So overall, not all of them, but most of these Mag 7 names that we're looking at, the big tech plays, longer duration calls were being purchased. So instead of playing it for this Friday, they were playing stuff a little bit further out. So kind of interesting to note, looking at the overall market, the S&P 500 right here, people were buying puts and then they started to get out of puts. Then they really got out of the puts simultaneously when they started buying calls. That is a twofer. You're adding positive delta and removing negative delta. When you do that, that's when you get a huge pop in delta. And that's obviously going to be associated with this big pop. Look at where we're bouncing right now, the high from yesterday. I'm not saying that technicals are the end all be all, but I'm saying that they do, especially previous highs and lows of like a whole daily session, they really do come into handy, especially when you start to pair that up with major gamma levels right here, 6875. Surprise, surprise. Not only are we bouncing off the high from yesterday, the technical high, we're bouncing off the one major last positive gamma node. And guess what? We just probably will get this drift up into close. Like, we really don't need to overcomplicate this one, folks. If you're looking at the options positioning and then you pair that with basic technical analysis, and then you have a discipline to just apply like rudimentary risk management with technicals, with options flow / options positioning / big money in the options market, basically options analysis, technical analysis, risk management. You put those three things together, well, you're going to be like Trump and that general from NATO, and you're going to be consummating something. I would say that's the easiest way to kind of like really summarize it. Folks, what do we have? About 20 minutes to go. More than happy to answer some questions as we're seeing if the market, it will just get this drift up higher and higher and higher. I very much, looks like that's over. What are we going over here? We can see what they're in. Very quickly, I just want to let you know, on Rumble and on the backup YouTube channel, brand new video. I need your help. To clarify, this has nothing to do with the Discord. Yes, we launched a new version of the same Discord today, just a lot easier to manage. This has nothing to do with it. This has everything to do with my SIMDA funded accounts, and this is not like a hyperbolic or thing whatsoever. This is very much me trying to get your thoughts and opinions on this situation. The video is out. I need your help. Feel free to search I need your help, Matt Kohrs, or just go right to it. It's going to be up for a bit. I'm going to be reading every single comment on this video to see what your thoughts are, what your advice is. So feel free to add that to your watch queue at some point. I wouldn't say it's like imperative to watch it before market closes, but I would say I just want to let you know that that is out there. And then obviously, if you're just joining in right now, I would say the biggest news of the day, beyond the fact that you made a lot of money, I made a lot of money, locking in almost $100,000 trading futures, and then probably another, I don't know, 5 to 10K trading options today, the revamped Discord is launched. Previously, there was issues with scammers. There was issues with syncing your locals account and your Discord account. And also, like, I just didn't have much flexibility the way locals was set up. So instead, I hired a team of coders that I personally know, just my boys from back at Penn State. For those of you who don't know, I studied computer science. Anyway, I reached out to them. They did a little bit of vibe coding with Claude, and here is the new and improved landing page, which is very exciting because actually on here, for those of you who are members of Discord, you know there's a lot of education and stats, facts, and figures and seasonality. This is a great way to manage all of that because when you log in, let's just say you're busy and you're not in the Discord, but you want to like quickly check something. That's exactly what this is going to be. Is it perfect right now? No. To be completely transparent, this was supposed to roll out in early February. I front ran it today because people were having too many issues with locals. So please just give me like a little bit of time for like an awkward transition. I just want to be very forthcoming and transparent about it, which is exactly why the entire first month is free, because I'm basically just saying, hey, in 1 month, give me a bit of time to update everything. Give me a bit of time to prove it to you, which is exactly why I'm not charging anyone for that first month. So if you use that code Davos, DAVOS, it is valid for today. It's pinned to the top of chat. It's in the description of the video. I'm already seeing that quite a few of you signed up. I was just looking at the list of names. Who do we have? A very specialty shout out to all the brand new people. But then I would even say more of a specialty shout out to the OG members in Discord who have been supporting me through all the craziness you put up with scammers and the locals issues. So the fact that you guys kind of went through that gauntlet, obviously a specialty shout out to you. But for the new people, giving me an opportunity to prove myself to you, Daniel, Rodrigo, Steven, Gilda Silva, Anders, Dallas Jackman, that's a fucking sick name, Dennis, Avon, Brandon, Benjamin, Adam, Brandon again, 2 Brandons. All right, we might want to put a ban on the amount of Brandons that are joining. So if your name is Brandon, don't join. We're capped out on Brandons. No more Brandon. So if you're allowed to join as long as your name is not Brandon. We've had too many Brandons today, and at one point in the past, we've had this entire cohort of Michaels, and it got out of hand, and it got out of hand quickly. So just trying to learn from the past. I don't want Michael Apocalypse 2.0. So sorry, no more Brandons. But if you're not Brandon, feel free to join. So we're just going to, Mr. Producer, if you could keep a check on that to make sure no more Brandons are getting in. We can't have the Michael Apocalypse again. Trust me. It was like the Greg Apocalypse, but way fucking worse. So like, let's not make those same mistakes over and over again. You know, that's the definition of insanity, of doing the same thing and expecting a different response. So that's kind of it on the day. I mean, a lot of you guys made money. That's awesome. We posted a brand new video. I'm looking for your advice there. You can get into the Discord for free. The Tom Lee's coming up. Oh, Tom Lee's on the phone. Let's listen to this. Hang on. Let's see.
Don't actually invade and take over.
Where are we at? Okay, you guys can hear it. The volume is up. The man, the myth, the legend, Tom Lee, who's been bullish throughout all of this chaos related to Trump and Greenland and everything in between. Obviously, he's probably feeling pretty good right now that the tariffs are officially canceled, maybe just on pause. But as of today, Trump's meeting in Davos, there is some sort of, I guess, handshake deal struck. And I would imagine that Tom Lee is feeling pretty good about his bullish callouts.
Trust whoever credibility.
If we can find it.
Thanks.
Oh, that was President Trump speaking with our own Joe Kernan just moments ago in Davos. The market rallying on that news that a framework to a deal with NATO over Greenland has been reached. Joining me now is CNBC contributor Fundstrat's Tom Lee. Tom, it's great to have you react to the president and what's happening in the market. So a framework
Love
to
the
a
hair,
deal,
as always.
no force, all is well now for the bulls?
Scott, I think so. You know, I'd say on Monday morning before the open, I think investors were very concerned about Greenland and what's happened in Japan. And they thought of 2025 when it took 8 weeks for stocks to find their low, down 20%. So I think there was a lot of fear. So today's news really does do a lot to diffuse a lot of that anxiety. And I think
I would say that's pretty
wise
obvious.
to buy that dip.
Yeah, I mean, as part of this, of course, the president also saying no tariffs on Europe on February 1st, and that's what really upset the market. Are you still looking, though, Tom, as positive as you might sound for a bear market sometime around mid-year?
That's right, Scott. I think
bear market
have been
mid-year.
pretty clear that we think that there is going to be a mid-year pickup. It could be around policy or it could be around the new Fed being challenged. But that's coming from us markets being at a higher level. And I think one of the mistakes people make whenever they hear that commentary is they think it means to go to cash. Now, as you know, we've advised to stay invested and to buy the dip. But yes, there is a lot of good taking place in 2026, but we do have a lot that's already been priced in because of 3 good years of market gains.
What dip would you be buying specifically?
Well, for instance, I would be buying the dip on companies that have good earnings visibility or a structural reason to be long, because those that got sold yesterday, for instance, they're still the same great company. They were just 10% cheaper. I mean, to me, that's a stock I'd want to buy. The names I'd want to avoid are companies that are in the bullseye of White House policy, because we know last year the White House picked winners and losers. It created problems for healthcare and consulting companies. This year it's credit card issuers, institutional buyers of single-family homes, and that's, some countries too. So I think that's the stocks to avoid, but I think fundamentally strong names, you still want to buy the dip.
I mean, it's complicated, though. You say that. You don't know who's in the so-called bullseye next. That's one of the problems.
I think it's the AI trade is still alive and well.
100%. You're right, because if the White House decides that there's a company or a series of companies that are creating problems for Americans right now, whether it's credit card bills or electricity bills, there could be action. As you know, one of the potential, quote, risks is data centers and their consumption of electricity. So that is something to watch.
I mean, you're gonna say, don't buy the home builders, because what if the home builders, he doesn't like home builders building homes and charging the prices they're charging? I'm just saying it's a slippery slope to start going down, where, in your words, you have an administration picking winners and losers. It certainly complicates the picture a bit, doesn't it?
It does, Scott. I mean, every administration picks winners and losers. Tom Block, our policy strategist, has pointed out that's what Washington's habit is, that they tend to pick winners and losers. But we do have a White House that is quite ambitious. They've accomplished a lot, but they're trying to accomplish a lot. So you're right, that's the risk. And perhaps one of these is enough of a tipping point to cause a broader pullback in markets. I mean, that's another possibility for why we'd have a drawdown that feels like a bear market.
But you still feel as though whatever upset we see or feel is going to be reversed and we end up having a pretty strong year?
Yes. In 2025, that 20% decline did not lead to a recession. And as we pointed out, that since 1950, waterfall declines that are not followed by a recession, and particularly a VIX hitting 60, have been symmetric recoveries. So I think if we have a, 6-week drawdown, investors shouldn't sell, because unless they're great at timing, we can recover all of that loss within 6 weeks, and we are expecting a really strong finish for the year. So,
Tom,
I think it's just.
Where does the Fed factor in to all of this? You heard the president with his obvious criticism of the current chair, Jay Powell, and some commentary on where the next chair may come from. How much does this matter to your outlook?
The market will test
Scott.
the Fed.
The Federal Reserve is the single most important entity in the world, and its independence is incredibly important because markets respect the Fed and they actually fear the Fed. So the independence matters. I think the process, and Steve Reisman made some good points, I think we're at odds increasing that it's a Fed that'll be respected because the multiple things taking place at the Fed now kind of limit how the White House can proceed to pick the new Fed chair. And actually, that's probably a good thing.
Tom, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you coming to the phone and reacting to this interview between Joe Kernan and President Trump, and certainly the market reaction to a day where the headlines have certainly moved in favor of a positive outcome, if you will, between the United States and NATO regarding Greenland. We'll do the Market Zone next.
All right, so there you have it from Tom Lee. Tom Lee is basically saying, I told you it's going to be bullish. I'm still confident in bullish. There's going to be a hiccup mid-year. Those dips are to be bought, and we're going to end out the calendar year in the green. Obviously, maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. I'm not saying he's perfect, but he's made a lot of accurate calls. Now, in terms of my personal opinions, I kind of agree with that. I actually think that the mid-year dip might be a little bit more aggressive than he's anticipating, but that's going to be kind of dependent on the data set in terms of unemployment, what's going on with the labor market in a general sense, and inflation, and really the Fed. I think there could be some frothiness with the new Fed and new decisions, so that's what I'm personally looking for. But in terms of where we're going in the year, yes, I very much believe we will end the year in the green. All right. We have this, we have this, we have this. Folks, I'm running out of things to say. Mag 7, I think this is a nice setup for tomorrow, a nice setup for Friday. Other than that, check out Lucid. Those are the new accounts I'm trading on, code Goonie. But most importantly, if you want to be in the Goonie trading Discord, futures trading, options, really just voice chats, trading together, daily write-ups, all that stuff, it's free. The first month is free, so it's not like a gotcha thing. Check it out for a month. If you like it, stick around. If it's not for you, just cancel your account within the first month, and you're never going to be charged anything. If you have any questions, right here, here's the contact form, GooneyTrading.com, contact top right, name, email, questions. I will personally be getting back to you. Folks, in fact, I'm going to go hang out in the Discord right now to welcome and chat with all the new members before the market closes. I don't want to lose them on day one, so I just want to say hi. So I'm going to go hang out there. If you're in the Discord, hey, I'm about to be in BC. I appreciate the vibes today. I know it's been a wild day. I know a lot of you made a lot of money. So for me, first, massive congrats to you. We're going to be streaming once again tomorrow morning. We do have GDP and inflation. So if you guys want to start early, we can start early, or maybe that'll just be a specialty Discord thing. Let's wait and see how that plays out. But anyway, massive congrats today. I appreciate all the good vibes. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.